TV, a cross ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today we're going to be discussing U.S. military aid to Israel. Given the events of the recent weeks, with Israel declaring war on Hamas and going into Gaza, both with aerial bombardment as well as a ground invasion, um, and all that entails. Is it responsible for the U.S. to continue to give military aid to Israel as we have done? Currently, we give about $3.8 billion in foreign military aid to Israel, the highest of any other country, Egypt being a close second. Um, Is this wise? Is this responsible? What culpability does America have for any war crimes that Israel may commit because we fund them? We're going to discuss all this and more. We have one more guest, hopefully, that will be joining us soon. But in the meantime, let's start with the ones we got here. Just introduce yourselves, give I stress, concise opening thoughts, and we'll get right into it. And we're going to start with first time guest on my show, Bance. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm arguing for the continuation of US aid to Israel. I support a two-state solution. I want a free and democratic Palestine and a free and democratic Israel. I think US support would be a diplomatic nightmare, and it's not the answer. And while I disagree with what Israel is doing, I think it's up to the US and the West to sort of guide Israel's hand towards a less confrontational and more peace-oriented direction.
Okay. Thanks for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Non-smoker, what are your thoughts?
Hey everyone, twitch.tv/non-smoker, non_smoker. Yeah, I am 100% against any funding going to Israel, other than perhaps humanitarian aid, which is the only aid that we send to Gaza. I happen to think that it's probably the single biggest contributor in this, latest onslaught on Gaza, and for that matter, the outbreak of the continued, I don't want to say outbreak, continued proliferation of violence in the whole region. We are a force for evil in the world, generally speaking. We're basically a giant weapons factory, and we create wars everywhere we go because of that, and we need to stop that as soon as possible.
Okay, I'm sure we'll get into it as we go. Lactoid, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm Lactoid TV. Unlike my counterpart here, the USA is actually, I believe the USA is actually a force for good, and I think Israel is simply a arm of America, realistically here. I would like the funding to be more about loans than direct aid, just given the standard of living in Israel, and I think these loans should probably have a few more strings attached. My understanding is right now only 74% of the military aid that we give to Israel has to be spent on U.S. equipment. I think that should be 100%. But ultimately, they're a close ally and the only democracy in the Middle East, and that area is better off under the control of Israel and America than the little, monarchies or tyrannies that exist otherwise. So it's a good idea.
Okay, thanks for being here. We'll see as we go. And last for now, but certainly not least, another first time guest of the show, Mono. Please go ahead.
Hey, my name is Mono. I've lived, or Monokuro, however you want. I've lived in Israel my entire life. I'm an Israeli citizen. This is a bit more complicated for me, and my answer will probably not be as precise as everyone else's. But for now, at least until I know that there's like an alternative that doesn't destabilize the entire situation in the Middle East and between Israel and Gaza and the terror organizations, which I will need to hear in depth, I will remain for now in favor of the U.S. Giving funds, and I'll expand on that later.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we go. I was hoping that by the time we would get to her turn, Vivian would be here, but she is not here. I'm going to DM her again. But as I do so, I just like to open up the discussion. If you have thoughts or questions, feel free to chime in. And if you have trouble getting in, please keep your hand raised. Let me see if we can get her in real quick.
I'll just flail like wildly.
Okay, flail wildly. Do whatever you can. Okay. But with that, the floor is open. Go ahead. Discuss.
So, non-smoker, what do you think the consequences would be if the US stopped funding Israel?
Well,
Like
I mean,
directly.
what do I think the consequences would be? It's an interesting question. I mean, it's interesting that you support a two-state solution because I feel like there would probably need to be a diplomatic resolution. There'd be a lot of pressure on Israel to establish some sort of diplomatic resolution between them and the Palestinian people to ensure a decrease in violence. Why would there be any motivation to do that now when Israel receives billions of dollars every year in weapons assistance to fight people who are, essentially like poorly trained and poorly armed? There's no there's no incentive on the part of Israel to reach any solution when they can just enforce their view on the region with might makes right kind of approach.
Sure, but is the US not in a better position to push them towards a more diplomatic end if they're providing funding?
I don't think the U.S. should be overseeing any diplomatic resolution there, especially considering the fact that we've already tried that numerous times and it's failed every single time, because we really are not, despite being a world power and all that stuff, we're a hyper aggressive world power, and we've by no means have some sort of proven track record or demonstrated a precedent where we can establish frameworks for peace anywhere in the world. We establish frameworks that always end up in wars.
I mean, I don't know if that's entirely true. Like, if you look at Bosnia, for example, I think the US has been able to do this with military before, but in terms of just supplying aid to Israel, wouldn't that just allow, wouldn't stopping the aid just allow another power, like say, I don't know, China, from coming in and then giving them support?
Do you feel like the Balkans? I mean, obviously there's not a war going on there, but do you feel like there's lasting peace there?
No, because we kind of fucked up the administration of Bosnia and Kosovo after we left. We didn't ever leave, I guess, is part of the problem. But I think that there is a solution to be worked towards diplomatically.
Oh, I
Like,
agree with that.
I would
I
rather,
think
I still think
us
it was worth.
overseeing, yeah, sorry, us overseeing a diplomatic resolution, in other words, becomes something where we have the country that we like or countries we like, we have the countries we don't like, and we attempt to broker some sort of peace that ultimately favors us and isn't necessarily fitted for the reality of the situation on the ground. And that's why a lot of these things just bubble over into conflicts.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it could go wrong, but I'm saying is that it could go right as well. Like, the former Yugoslavia, apart from basically Kosovo, things are more or less fine there, and Serbia, but that's a whole different fucking issue.
I
Yeah,
guess
I don't know. Yeah.
if may, we're gonna have someone jump in to help you out, non-smoker. I'm sorry, I don't know where Vivian is, but I'll just say this. Um, to Bants, can you give us other than so the example you gave with Bosnia, right? You realize it's a little bit of a fraught example because again, it's not very peaceful right now. There
Yeah,
are things. Do you have
yeah.
a maybe better example of how the US military aid or military intervention or involvement has remarkably or substantively improved the world as a whole?
Somalia?
Somalia.
Okay.
Elaborate.
Um, yeah, so I feel like it was worthwhile going into Somalia to help. I feel like they did manage to overwhelmingly decrease the number of pirate attacks, but it's not really like how it is in Israel. It's like a totally different issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Korea is a better example. Korea,
True.
Japan, Germany, these are countries that the U.S. And I think Japan has a lot of you can make a lot of comparisons between what we did in Japan and what Israel should probably do in Gaza. But I guess that's kind of a broader conversation
It's different though, because the support that we gave the Japanese after the Second World War was for infrastructure, economic development. It's not military aid. We've given more military aid to Israel by several times than any other country. The next closest country is the former South Vietnam. We've given, adjusted for inflation, over $300 billion to Israel in military aid since the end of the Second World War. Like,
there's definitely a difference in scope. But I mean, but Korea, I guess, is the best example I can think of in terms of U.S. military, and especially UN military aid that made the world a better place. Compare North Korea to South Korea.
But dude, there's a constant, inches away, like a nuclear conflict there. And not to mention the Korean War killed like 20% of the fucking population in Korea. It was a disaster. I mean, like it probably ended, it ended as well as a horrible thing could have possibly ended. I'll give that to you. But I don't think that's because of U.S. military support. If anything, U.S. military intervention there created a war that was probably avoidable and unnecessary.
That's no. So you have North Korea attack the South, completely invade, and then push it all the country. I'm sure you believe that, and push it all the way down to like the little corner in the bottom right, And then America comes in, like cock swinging as we do, and we kick their ass all the way back up to the current DMZ.
Why? Do you know
and
why?
And the South Koreans and the South Koreans now under U.S. influence have turned like. Go ask any Korean. I mean, and if you can even talk to North Korean, which place is better?
I get it.
Yeah, wealthier, more freedoms, more democracy, just like Israel compared to Palestine.
Wait, rewind the tape though. Why is there a South Korea and a North Korea? Do you know?
So, I mean, if we want to be like get into the weeds, there's because of U.S. influence and Soviet influence during the Cold War, it was split between the two.
Yeah, like, do you know how they drew up the boundary line?
I don't know the specifics as to where they put the old line. I know the current line is not the initial line that they drew.
Yeah, it's not actually a major difference, but the old line literally was a bunch of people in the State Department just drawing a fucking line through the peninsula. Like
if that's what the Soviets would agree with, that's what we had to do.
It's just imperial. No, it was shocking the Soviets agreed to that. It was actually shocking to the North Koreans. It was viewed as somewhat of a betrayal. But, Kim Il-sung, and whatever you think of the Kims and North Korea in general, in my view, and I think in the view of the Korean people, they were the rightful inheritors of the Korean Peninsula because they fought for the Korean independence in the Second World War.
Good luck, Tiberius.
Stop. I don't want this to devolve into a Korea debate. I understand why we're talking about that, but I want to roll it back to Israel, Palestine, Gaza, all that, right?
Can I jump in real quick and ask a non-smoker a question?
Please. And then I wanna get our friend Tiberius to weigh in as well, because Tiberius is filling in for Vivian today. So
that's a weird
Hi, Tiberius.
day, ain't it?
What's up?
It's good to see you. Go ahead and ask your question.
So yeah, Smoker, you said that you're in favor of the U.S. stopping the funding because you think it will kind of force Israel's hand in forming a diplomatic solution with Palestinians, more rather. If I got it correctly, did I?
More or less, yeah.
So, who exactly, like which country, which government, do you think a diplomatic solution could be made with?
It's actually a good question, and I think they would have to meet with some sort of delegation from Palestine, and obviously the representation in Gaza right now, anyway, being Hamas. That isn't a really good foundation for like a peaceful resolution. I don't know if that's the route you're going, but I understand the obvious problem there. I do think that, and this may be going back, to be fair to Bance, it's not too ridiculous to say the U.S. could have a say in some sort of, diplomatic, in some sort of role of overseeing a diplomatic resolution there. But I ultimately think it would have to be some sort of bilateral meeting between a Palestinian representation and Israeli one, and overseen preferably by maybe the entire UN Security Council.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to harp on this point because you didn't answer me. Like who is the Palestinian? Who is going to represent them?
Yeah. To be fair, I really don't have an answer to that. Like I don't. Okay, in an ideal world, it would be some sort of democratically elected Palestinian representation that isn't Hamas. Now, Hamas was democratically elected, but elections have been suspended. So it's
okay. So how do we get there? Like, what do you think? How do you think maybe the U.S. stopping the funding will impact that progression towards what you're saying? towards forming this kind of government.
I
The ones
think the
helping it.
U.S. stopping military aid will ultimately stop Israel's, hyper aggression in carrying out military strikes, knowing that there's really no end to the amount of weapons that they can use. They basically have full authority by like the world's police force, the U.S. and its culpable allies to basically do whatever they want. And for that matter, Russia and China are not demonstrating any, willingness to step in and stop this either. It just feels like Israel's emboldened to just essentially, if they want to, wipe out the entire Gaza Strip and push everybody out into Egypt and, colonize the territory outright. So I think that anything that would stop this bombardment, which is killing thousands of fucking civilians, would be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I'm pro ceasefire, but like, what do you think it will have any negative effect on stuff like in the sense of like the Iron Dome, which was largely funded by the
I want
US?
to put a pin in that because I'm curious what everyone else thinks on the ceasefire.
Yeah, sure.
Is there anyone here who is not pro ceasefire? Raise your hand. Okay, so one, but everyone else here is pretty much pro ceasefire. Okay, I just wanted to check to see where we stood on that. But
either
continue.
that or an approach that stops the
Fair enough. I was curious what everyone's stance was on that. But go ahead.
So yeah, where was I? Like
Iron Dome.
Iron Dome, because it's largely like a lot of stuff militarily in Israel. It's largely funded by the US. If the US stops funding Israel, sending money, whatever, a lot of Israel's ability to defend itself will be diminished. And to be honest, like it's been like the 7th October 7th has been approved that the other side is just as aggressive, if not more. I mean, we haven't done anything like that. What do you think happens if Israel kind of has its defensive abilities diminished?
I mean, I think implying that one, and it's egregious, obviously the October 7th attack, but one massive onslaught, considering the decades and decades and decades of U.S. military support, trying to make the argument that like, okay, this one attack demonstrates that not only do we fund them enough, but we need to continue funding is kind of like a fallacy. Like, I think that the military capability of Hamas and the Palestinians more broadly is a little bit overblown. I do think
the Palestinians have no military power.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that it's a justification to say, well, we should continue billions of dollars of funding simply because Israel was attacked on October 7th. I mean, couldn't an argument be made that like the billions of dollars of funding is actually not making Israel any more secure?
I think the Iron Dome had an insane effect on Israel citizens being able to live more safely. I mean, without it, I think there would be much more bloodshed and death toll would rise like crazy. But I think a more interesting question regarding funds, like when you said earlier that you support the aid going to Gaza, how much of it do you think, if that's okay, that I'm kind of diverting it to it, but like how much of it do you think goes to the Gazan citizens in comparison to how much Hamas?
I'm sure those funds are misappropriated. I don't know percentages.
How much?
It would just be guessing. It's just conjecture. I have no idea.
Most of it?
I don't know.
At all?
I don't know. You're asking me to literally guess. So
I mean, it's not that far-fetched when you guess something about it, because we can see the state of Gaza with all of the funding. I mean, we're talking about like, I don't know, billions of dollars?
$500 million.
$500 million? All right.
Yeah.
Do you
Compared
think
to
maybe
$3 billion for Israel?
I think even if half of it got to them, the state of Gaza would look different.
I actually disagree with this. I will push back on this.
Go ahead, Tiberius.
Yeah, I disagree with this. I'll push back on it. One of the biggest things that concerns me about Gaza is that while you do have a lot of folks there that actually are pretty good people who are trying to make a decent something for themselves, right? You have a leadership that is incredibly kleptocratic. You probably have all seen the videos, but if you haven't, there was a water pipeline system that was built out into Gaza over the last 4 years. It was done through a lot of international effort and international aid, and eventually was torn up in the last 3 months to build the rockets for this offensive. They literally just pulled them all out of the ground, made it to where a lot of folks weren't able to get water in the consistent way that they were, and manufactured those into rockets. And not Hezbollah, excuse me, wrong people. Hamas happened to post this up all over all over social media, and was like very proud of it. It's like, yeah, we turned like the enemy's things into bombs, right? Oh, sorry, my dogs are being jackasses. But yeah, I do not believe that until Hamas is gone, that Gaza is going to be any kind of a better situation. As far largely out of the fact that their leaders are incredibly kleptocratic. They will do whatever they think is necessary to defeat Israel, even if it means the destruction of Gaza itself, which is a little weird, but they'll do it.
Who are you pushing back against? Not me, I guess.
I actually was kind of going into you because you're like, hey, I think if this X money gets through, then that'll help improve Gaza. Gaza will be a better place, and maybe people won't be.
If it gets to the citizens, not if it gets to Hamas. That's what.
Well,
Yeah,
even if
saying.
it, well, the problem is they kind of go one and the same, because even if Hamas is not, because even if Hamas is not like supported by 90% of the people, the problem is that the people are enablers. They are, whether largely coercion. I'm going to say it's coercion. Is that these folks are still letting terrorists in their houses?
It's not coercion; it's brainwashing. They're brainwashed like from babies into supporting Hamas as a terrorist organization.
Well, they're brainwashed because they're living in like an open air fucking prison in like abject poverty. And whether or not that's, well, I guess my point is there's some justification for the brainwashing. It's not like they're treated well by the Israeli government. And I mean, dude, like if you grew up in that environment, there's no way that you could. I mean, I'm maybe just speaking for myself. There's no way I could grow up in that environment and not develop a tremendous amount of murderous hostility towards Israel, whether or not someone was, constantly spewing me with propaganda all the time, because it's evident how terrible conditions are there. And, Hamas plays a part in that. But I think ultimately, like the elephant in the room in our discussion seems to be that Israel is doing, a pretty damn good job of cutting the Palestinians off from any kind of, development.
Yeah, I agree. But do you think okay, saying the U.S. stops its funding entirely, like do we just keep the money? Do we divert it to helping Gaza, Palestinians?
No, I think humanitarian aid is good, but I don't think Israel has a need. Yeah, I don't think Israel has a need for humanitarian aid to the same level that Gaza does. To be quite honest with you, Israel's like a advanced, economy. They're a rich country, they don't need humanitarian aid from the U.S. They need military aid, and they need military aid essentially to I think, assert their dominance as a regional power. It's not really about Palestine. And we have an interest in having a regional power who's on good terms with us. That's why we send military aid to Israel. It's not even really about protecting Israelis.
I don't think Hamas clear,
if
though.
I may. Okay. If I may, Mono, I want to kind of maybe open it up a little bit, get more people into discussion, etc. Maybe kind of redirect a little bit.
Sure.
And I'll just ask everyone, and you could just give me a simple yes or no, and then we'll discuss. And I'll start with Bance. Bance.
Hello.
Is Biden enabling a genocide?
Fucking hell. No.
No.
So,
okay.
Mostly no.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it. Blacktoid, is Biden enabling a genocide?
I really want to say yes, but no. Because it's Biden. Because it's Biden, right?
Oh, yeah. Fair enough. Mono. Same
no,
question.
No. That's a big word for a small man.
Non-smoker.
Hell to the motherfucking yes.
Tiberius.
Genocide, I'm not sure on. Ethnic cleansing, absolutely.
Okay, sure. Ethnic cleansing. We'll go with ethnic cleansing. That's much better, I guess. Fair enough. So, okay. Why? Why do you say that, Tiberius? I'm curious.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so whether it's Biden, whether it's any American president, I want to make that very clear. I criticize Trump for this as well, and pretty much all of the American presidents is. Over the last 30 years, if not longer, the Israelis have had the settlement program. The settlement program is effectively a slow-rolling ethnic cleansing campaign. They are slowly pushing the Palestinians into a smaller and smaller pocket in a smaller and smaller corner, and just removing them from play through the political spectrum. Yes, they do have people that are Palestinians that are within the political system. It's like 20% of their population. But this is the reason why we don't have a one-state solution. They don't want to give the majority Palestinians the right to vote, because in the event that they did, they would be the minority. And it's very clear we are dealing with an ethno-religious centric state that does pride itself on its existence as the Jewish people of the Jewish faith in the Jewish land. They're not going to allow a democracy to usurp into that. Literally, it is an ethnocentric democracy. Because of that, they will never play good faith with the Palestinians, and their only other option is to slowly push the Palestinians into a box and suffocate them to death. So yes, that is ethnic cleansing.
Is that kind of what you think too, non-smoker, or how would you differentiate?
Yeah, I don't want to get off topic again. I would hate to do that, but I would love to know everybody's opinion on the Holodomor. Maybe some other time.
Yeah, no, we don't
But,
need to go to the
but
Holodomor.
instead of going there, how about we just talk about the UN's definition? So, with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, it involves any of the following: killing members of the group, check; causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, check; deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or part, check; imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, check; forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. I mean, fucking come on. I don't understand. People are so loose with the definition of genocide. And honestly, to a point where I do feel like people weaponize that and they try to turn everything into the Holocaust, which is in many ways an incomparable historical event, and I think that that's bad and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, at the end of the day, if we're going to say this, that, and the other were genocides, how the fuck does it not fit this scenario? I really need to hear someone explain
Good
that
question.
to me.
Lactoid, how is it not?
So under strict UN definition, I actually just had a whole long conversation on this. I 100% agree with what you said when you said the word genocide is a little bit overused, and I think it is. We were just running through crazy hypos. We're technically banning the N-word as gamer genocide under strict cultural genocide definitions. If we want to be super pedantic about it, it's true, right? I could argue that and I'd be right. But obviously that's just a ridiculous outcome. So I think I've gotten to the point where I'm not sure I care. Unless we're talking about killing large groups of people, I don't think I don't think it is a genocide. And if it is defined as that by the UN, I disagree.
Bans. Why isn't it a genocide? So, according to Lactoid here, because they're still allowed to say the N-word, it's not a genocide. Why do you say it's not a genocide?
Well, I do think gamers are being genocided. That's something I can agree with. No, but I would say I would agree that it's some sort of ethnic cleansing. In Israel-Palestine, it's some sort of an ethnic cleansing, and I just agree with what's going on there. I don't know if it meets the intentionality requirements, of the intentionality to destroy these people in whole or in part. I don't think it meets that line for genocide.
I agree.
I want to ask a quick question on Smoker. Because this is my idea. My idea would not be to push people out of Gaza, but it would be for the IDF to come in, occupy the entire Gaza Strip, and then set up IDF schools to basically westernize the children there. Would you consider this to be genocide?
Fuck yes, dude. Yes. We can't bring our liberal bullshit into places in the world and fucking attempt to sterilize all culture and turn it Western, dude. It's fucking demonic. No. Fuck no.
Wait. How is liberalizing them is genocide?
Dude, if liberalism really is some objectively true thing that anybody would reach through reason automatically, if they abandon all their superstitious presuppositions about meaning and all this stuff, and if they were just really enlightened and all of that, these regions would reach those conclusions on their own organically. We wouldn't have to go in there and teach them how to believe our bullshit.
This isn't answering my question. How is liberalizing them genociding them?
Because the way that Lactoid's defining it, setting up some sort of IDF re-education, is literally the erasure of their culture.
Let's not call it re-education. Let's call it just bringing modern education to Gaza, so people will be educated there and not necessarily brainwashed by their government to kill.
Okay, so look,
is it not better?
Okay, listen, I'm an educator. I teach high school. So it depends what you mean about education. Do you mean that you're going to sit there and attempt to teach like the humanities in a way that
History,
orients students
math,
towards?
English.
Yeah. But you have to understand, there's a way of teaching. In many ways, is like an indoctrinating process. There's ideological presuppositions built into a lot of the things you teach, especially in the humanities.
Indoctrinated to kill.
Well, I think that, yeah, that definitely does happen there. But I also think
It's
that
the only thing that happens. Sorry, I can't just let it slide. I need you to tell me, how is it genocide, and how is it worse than what's going on there right now? How is it not helping?
would you contend that every single Palestinian in Gaza is equally, committed to the destruction of Israel as those people in Hamas are?
No, but they're equally uneducated because they don't have
Okay,
a proper
but
education system.
wait, hold on, because I want to go somewhere with this. Okay, so
Sure.
no, given the fact that, as you put it, they're under 24/7 indoctrination, there's still probably an overwhelming percentage of them who are not committed to the destruction of Israel. So, given that fact, I think it's safe to assume that indoctrination, one way or the other, that's going on there now, doesn't necessarily make everybody there homicidal and crazy and horrible. Is that fair to say?
It's very fair.
Okay, so given that fact, isn't it also fair to say that the foundation that's in place there's maybe more to it than just kill Israel, right?
Yeah, kill the West, kill Westerners.
But don't you think
That's
it's a
a big
little bit
part of
more
it.
than that too?
It's not. I don't buy the whole like Hamas is like the Palestinian front
No.
for like their freedom.
No, I don't.
They're
I
not
don't believe
teaching
that
them to
either.
fight for the Palestinian
No,
people.
I don't believe
They're
that
teaching
either.
them
I don't believe that either. But I also I don't think Hamas represents every single Palestinian. I mean, they do technically, but I don't
That's the
think they
problem.
I don't think that they encapsulate the views of every single Palestinian. I
Mhm.
think that they're the vast radical, or vast. They're the extreme radical end of that. And
They're the
I haven't.
government.
Sure. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's more to like Islamic Arab culture than kill the West, kill the Jews. You know what I'm saying?
That's a different thing entirely because we're talking about Hamas and Gaza. We're not talking about
So
Muslims in general.
we agree then. The problem then is Hamas, but to the idea of replacing Hamas with some sort of Western secular re-education is like not a
That
good
would
solution.
be far superior.
You know where that
That'd be
failed?
base.
Iran. That failed in
Wait,
Iran.
you know where it didn't? Hold on. You know where this didn't fail? Japan. Post-occupation, during the American occupation, the U.S. controlled the educational system of Japan, like rewrote a whole bunch of shit, censored a whole bunch of shit, and like essentially re-educated the Japanese population, and that worked out just great.
Well, now we have anime though, so did it?
Yeah, now people
very
die
good
in
point.
their
Very,
offices for
very
not
good point.
working.
You're shit.
Yeah, I
But
think
still, that is much preferable to them being like, I don't know, murderous and
well, okay,
genocidal.
Japan. Can I just make a point about Japan real quick? Japan is not a great comparison, and here's why. Japan, actually, their education system and their culture was already fairly westernized during the Meiji Restoration. Like
Yeah.
the Japanese foundation, Japan is sort of like the closest Eastern country to the West culturally in a lot of ways. So the idea of like implementing a Western style education system or Western, liberal values in Japanese society, it's very different than trying to implement those in like this, many ways, far, I don't want to say reactionary, but, ultimately
Why
like
not?
ultra.
Why don't you want to say reactionary?
Because that has like a pejorative quality to it. I'm trying to make a point that
Whatever.
like,
Are you bringing it back to the
Stop,
topic though?
stop. Should we not be pejorative to any culture that says, "Hey, we should go and just wipe out this group of people"?
I don't think that is the basis
They're
of Muslim
westernized them.
culture. I think you're being racist as fuck, dude. That's not the
I'm not
basis
talking about
of
Muslims. I'm talking about specifically Hamas, what they teach the children.
yeah. Hamas is not the
Gaza.
culture of Gaza, though.
Hamas
is the ruling party.
body.
Yeah, but they're
Oh,
not.
I don't
They don't
know.
represent the culture
Is it
there.
not?
No,
There is
they're
no
part of
place
they're
for
part of
other
Arabic
culture as long as
civilization.
Hamas is in power.
I wanted to say something real quick. So, what you said about Japan was, again, it's not actually addressing the point. So, yeah, there were certain elements that were westernized in terms of like technology, et cetera, et cetera. But look at like what the U.S.
And
did.
education.
Look Look at what the U.S. did to the education. You can look this up. Look at what the U.S. did to the educational system of Japan during occupation. They fundamentally changed it. They changed the Japanese language that was taught. They changed the entire reading list. They changed a whole bunch of shit, and they focused on breaking down hierarchical methods of thinking that was in Japan school and replaced that with U.S. methods of thinking. We could do.
Hold on, wait.
No. Hold on.
Japanese
I'm in the middle of the
education
point.
is totally based on hierarchies. So is their culture.
Yes, there are definitely elements that we lessened those. What I'm trying to say.
So we failed.
Well, no, we did not fail.
No.
We did not fail when you look at what the goal was. The goal was
we succeeded in cutting their balls off.
The goal was not to turn Japan necessarily into a carbon copy of America, but it was to instill Western values in some very key respects, and it was highly successful. We can do the same thing in Gaza. Israel, if this is the mandate, which I think they should do, and I think this is partially what they did in Golan and Jerusalem, they should occupy that entire area, and they should make them citizens, and then the IDF installs schools to basically westernize the population there. I mean, it's either that or constant war. There's no other solution.
By the way, they can call it Palestine. I don't care. They don't need to be part of Israel. They can call Palestine, but give them education, give them a future. This is not...
I'm not against educating Palestinians, the way he framed it about this westernizing the people there. And let me make a point. Okay, can we all agree that Iran and Palestine is at least a closer cultural comparison than Iran and Japan?
Iran
Palestine
is a country.
and Japan.
Palestine is non-existent.
Okay, but culturally, can we at least agree there's a closer comparison between the two?
Dude, what kind of culture
Palestine?
can you have when you're
So is that a yes or no?
Moment? No.
Is that a yes or no?
Sure.
I'm sorry, that's a hard no.
Okay, it's a yes. Thank you. So Iran, where we essentially put in a fucking dictator who attempted to westernize the country, and did so for that matter, he was met with a radical, extremely, I will call Khomeini a reactionary, a far more radical contingent uprising and movement came in place of that as a response from the people who were frustrated with these values being impressed upon them. So the idea that we would just go and re-educate the Palestinians and teach them Bill Maher's top 10 best values, and they're going to be then non-militant and aggressive is fucking psychotic.
Well, no. This is the problem, and this is actually where I disagree with Mono, which is we can't half-ass this like we did with Iran and like we did with Iraq, where we give them their own governance while we try to do this. It needs to be a military occupation, like with Japan. And this needs to be implemented prior to people there being able to vote in a government, because what's the kind of government they're going to vote in? The most anti-libertarian government you can think of.
That's absurd.
It's the only way to prevent it. It's the only way.
A lot of predictions.
Okay,
the only way to prevent ongoing battles.
Okay. Stop. I want to give Tiberius a chance here. Give it go.
Okay.
See if you can do it. Tiberius,
So actually, on pretty much on this point, this is where I agree with Lactoid. I think that the only way to actually solve this, to get it to where you even have a chance at secularization, and again, I actually agree with Non-Smoker on this part. This is a big fucking if. This is a huge carry. So, but I don't trust the Israelis to secularize Palestine. That's not gonna fucking happen.
When you say that, you mean you don't trust the Likud, right? Because that's the Israelis you know.
Sure. Anyway, the long and the short, at least here, is that the only way I see this actually going remotely well is that the only democratic nation that can actually force project into the region and occupy and conquer it and institute these values is the United States. We fucking sucked at it before. I don't know if we're any better at it, to be completely honest. And it's going to be a 20-year occupation, minimum. I don't want to do that shit again, and I don't think that we're really cut out to do it.
What do you want to do?
The other side of this conversation, or I'll actually answer that here in just a second. I can point out Iran, but I can also point out the Turks, right? We're talking about two Islamic countries. One of them is far more pro-secular. I can bitch about Erdogan because he's a jackass and he's screaming the opposite direction. But the Turks have had about 100 years of what we would largely call liberal democracy that is secular.
That started organically, though.
Right, and there's
Not really. That was very much forced on top.
I look, Ataturk was a huge deal. I will say that to a significant degree, this was domestic grown. We also had Iran, which was originally a democratic nation. We helped overthrow that government because they elected leftists, which was a huge mistake because usually democracies go the other way sometimes. We've seen where this can go well, and we've seen where it can fuck up. I don't have any precedent to say the United States really understands the Islamic world well enough to migrate the nuance of actually not completely fucking it up. So, to the question that was asked, do I think we should do? I think we should just pretty much leave entirely. I don't want to support Israel. I don't want to support Palestine because I think no matter what happens, they're going to kill each
Oh,
other.
so fuck them, let them die, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hmm.
Because I think no matter what choice you make, either a bunch of people are going to die. So it's either you literally stamp on the button and you say, "All right, I'm going to support someone who commits ethnic cleansing and or genocide," and you just tell them, "Fucking go for it," because this problem needs to end. Or you say, "Look, we can't be your friends, Palestine or Israel, because what you're doing is monstrous, and we understand the situation you're in because we would probably agree with you if we were you, but we're not picking sides in this particular fight." Because I don't know how you make that ethical outside of just saying, all right, I support the ethnic cleansing of these people because I don't like these people.
That's lazy. I'm
Can't.
sorry, that's just lazy.
That's lazy? Oh, why?
That's
Because
lazy because you're not thinking like you do have to think about it a
Yeah,
bit
so-
ideologically. You do have to hope for a better world and work for it. You can just say no. I'm fucking
No,
off.
yeah.
Let them die. This is like the worst
you
answer
can
you can
no,
give.
fuck you. You can kiss my whole ass on this one. All right, first and foremost is that sometimes doing nothing is its own choice. And if you don't like that, fuck off. Second
Yeah, I
of
don't
all,
like
and more importantly, is that sometimes, even though you can say, you know what, Israel is trying to be a secular democracy, has a lot of these values that we should appreciate and approach, are they good faith and honest about it? And I think the answer is no. And so, yeah, I am going to say sometimes there's just evil and evil, and you don't have to support either side. And I don't think that's lazy. I think you're just stupid.
No, I think you're lazy. But it's because
Okay.
I'm stupid, probably.
Okay. On the theme of what should we do. So earlier I asked who here does not support a ceasefire. Lactoid was the only one who raised his hand, so everyone else pretty much does. So I want to start with non-smoker, and we'll kind of go around because I'm very curious. Ceasefire happens. Then what? What's the next step after the ceasefire? Ceasefire is put in place. What then? What's the next thing that Israel should do to help solve this problem? Because I think we could all agree the October 7th thing was a fucking problem, right? I'm pretty sure we all agree that was an issue. So how do they solve it? Ceasefires in place. What next? Go ahead, non-smoker.
I think Israel would be smart to approach the UN Security Council and ask them to vote for some sort of diplomatic summit on neutral ground where all of these countries on the Security Council or some select number of countries. I only picked the Security Council, not that it doesn't have flaws or whatever, but they happen to contain the largest military powers in the world, the three largest military powers in the world, Russia, China, and the US. And I think that there should be some sort of summit where a representative body from Palestine, it might have to be Hamas because that's all you have to work with, and Israel can meet and attempt to broker some sort of diplomacy here, along with, some sort of foundational talks for a two-state solution.
Diplomatic summit, basically, is
With
how I
Hamas.
would
Right.
With Hamas.
summarize. Okay. Vance, what's your answer here?
Yeah, so immediate ceasefire. I would then. Nothing is going to get done about Israel-Palestine until there's some sort of recognition of the fact that Israel has committed serious, fucked up, horrible things in the West Bank and in Gaza. So I do agree with the idea of a diplomatic summit. Basically an Oslo 2.0, but this time don't fuck it up. There needs to be they need to get around the table.
2.0, but don't fuck it up. So
Yeah.
diplomatic with who?
Yeah. I would probably say the UN Security Council is probably the best way to go.
Okay, but who's representing the Palestinians?
You'd probably have to bring in both Hamas and Fatah.
So Hamas and Fatah. Okay. Moon.
Okay, can I give
go
a small addendum?
Please.
So, being British, unfortunately, and we had the Troubles, the conflict in Northern Ireland, and that was only solved when we brought the British government, the Irish government, the Republican paramilitaries, and the Unionist paramilitaries. All these groups fucking hate each other, but it was the only way to actually get a lasting peace in the region. And there has been lasting peace for 25 years. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's directly analogous. I'm not saying it would work exactly the same. But sometimes you do have to work with bastards in order to like build
Fair
some
enough.
peace.
Fair enough. Mono, ceasefire. What then? You seem to be mocking this Hamas idea of a
I
diplomatic
just don't see
summit.
it happening. I
So
think that
what
what
do
will
you
happen is
see
we'll be
happening?
stuck. I think what will happen in what I want to happen or what I think will happen.
What again, ceasefire, which you said you supported,
Mhm.
happens. What should Israel's next step be?
First of all, Netanyahu needs to go ASAP. There needs to be someone who can handle the security situation with Israel and the entire thing that was going on with Israel beforehand. That Netanyahu had been like just like making it really stupid here. I don't know how else to call it, like the political situation.
Okay,
We need
Netanyahu ousted. What next?
Well, assuming we'll have like a stable government who can handle security stuff like that, we'll need to start working towards bettering the situation of the Palestinians in Israel.
So
First of all,
increase aid, increase access
education,
to
aid to the
education.
Palestinians and Arabs in Israel.
Okay. So to summarize your answer, so non-smoker says diplomatic summit, Vance diplomatic summit. Mono here is like House
Aid
Netanyahu
that gets where it needs to go.
and ensure the aid gets where it needs to go to
Mhm.
build up Gaza infrastructure and other
And the Arabs, Israel is in Israel.
and yeah, sure, and Arabs in Israel upped their status within Israel. Tiberius, your turn.
Okay, so I might have misunderstood the question. Like, obviously, I would like a ceasefire because the civilian casualties in this whole operation has been atrocious. Right, I'm not really fond of people dying. However, is it remotely possible? And I think the answer is just no. So,
Okay,
like,
so you
I'm
don't support, just to be clear, you don't support a current, as it stands right now, a ceasefire.
well, just put it this way: I have no problem with a ceasefire. Like the question is, can we have one? That's kind of where I'm at. I don't believe that is possible. So
Well,
like if
assuming it is,
uh-huh.
assuming it is, and they were able to, okay, Hamas stops firing the rockets, Israel stops bombing.
Right.
What's the next step?
Okay, so the first round of ceasefire is to actually stop shooting each other. The second one actually would be just getting together and like, hey, can we work something fucking out
Diplomatic
here?
summit.
Right.
Got it.
It's just like
With
diplomatic
Hamas.
summit. Unfortunately, yes, but
Okay.
this is where I think this goes off the rails. I don't think the Israelis are going to support that. I think they're fucking done. They're going to figure out how to destroy Hamas completely, and it doesn't matter what it takes. They're going to do it. And then, does Palestine really have anyone to support them outside of that? Like, who's the people who run the West Bank off the top of my head?
Fatah.
Is it Fatah?
Sorry, I can't pronounce.
Yeah, if they can get Fatah to like kind of like usurp over Hamas, like you might have a conversation because they've actually had a decent working relationship with the Israelis. I just don't see where Hamas is going to survive and still have a ceasefire. So
What
I
about
wanna make
Israeli
sure.
Palestinians?
Before we go too far into it, one more question for Lactoid specifically, since he's the only one that was like, nah, ceasefire, fuck that. Why not? Why not ceasefire? What do you want to happen?
Because I feel like a ceasefire is just we're just gonna get another 100 years of rockets, airstrike, rockets, airstrike, rockets, airstrike. I think that the issue needs to be solved, and this is the time to solve it after what we saw on the 7th of October. And the way
What do you mean by solved?
Well, just exactly as I described, right? The IDF needs to move in and occupy the entire Gaza, and there needs to be like a permanent, like, okay, we're going to have schools, we're going to really invest and to make Gaza part of Israel, right? And that means culturally, that means economically, that means really bringing it into the country. I mean, that's the only way this doesn't end another
Does
100
a Gazan
another
get the
100
same right
years.
to vote that a Israeli citizen does in your example?
Following the military occupation, yes, which is what now Israel has showed an openness to do this, right? When they've offered Israeli citizenship to everybody in Jerusalem, they've offered it to everybody in the Golan Heights. I think it'd be fair that once they occupy Gaza and kind of westernize it, that they do the exact same thing for the people there.
The Fuhrer has spoken.
Dude, it sounds insane, but this is the best question. That's the best answer anyone has given yet.
No, it just sounds insane.
Nah.
Yeah, it's what we did in Japan, and it worked. I mean, it was what we did in Germany, and it worked.
The Japan example is so stupid.
We denazified Germany. We
Dude,
actually denazified Germany,
think
and
the
this is how we
reason-
did it.
I think this is another order of magnitude
Okay.
leap. Like I will kind of come to the defense of non-smoker here, which is weird. I'm never on his side on anything, but I do think that I don't trust the Israelis to do this well. Personally, it's not that they don't have the ability, but I agree with Mono on this one. Like Benny's got to go. Benny absolutely is. BB Benny, I don't really give a shit, dude. Like, old Benjamin Netanyahu, okay? Like, I know who he is, so like, he needs to fucking go, okay? Hell, his replacement was as fucking nuts as he was. Like, I'm not particularly confident in this administration, but no matter what happens, I did want to bring this up. The people who get the theologian funding as part of like the social welfare of the Israeli government, they're the ones who have been running the intelligence agency for 10 years, and they're the ones who completely missed this entire operation. Like, they're actually supposed to have like ears to the ground to where they can find out, oh, we're about to get slammed with a bunch of rockets. No one had it on their fucking radar, which tells me that like this whole scheme where you have people who are paid to largely, become Hebrew scholars, and then they get into the intelligence agency. Yeah, that needs to go. It needs to go really quickly. Sorry, I will rant on for this forever and just go into circles. But
Can I ask you a question though?
Sure, what's up?
Like, obviously the Likud, no one wants them to handle anything. But like, do you not trust any sort of government in Israel to handle any sort of situation?
Well, I just don't trust the current government of Israel. I'll put it in that regard. If you actually had somehow to where the Israeli Palestinians or Palestinian Israelis, whichever term you want to use, if they actually were somehow to become like the popular movement to where it's like, hey, we're going to bring Israel and Palestine together. Like, hey, we think Israel is actually a pretty fucking awesome place. Well, let's bring our Gazan brothers into this. Like, that would be like the dream fuel come true, honestly, because I've always believed you're not going to get a 2-state solution. It's going to be a 1-state.
Okay.
And it's just,
I don't know about that, but the rest of what you said.
Before we go too far, I know we don't have much more time with non-smoker, and I'm very curious what he thinks. Like, because he called Lactoids take crazy, and I want to hear him elaborate as to why. And also, I'm curious of what he thinks of what Tiberius here is putting down with the 1-state solution. Do you support a 1-state or a 2-state solution, or something in between, non-smoker, for the Israel-Palestine situation?
2-state solution, absolutely. A return to the 67 borders.
67 borders? Okay.
But okay, so why is it crazy? Well, it's crazy for, I think, all the reasons I previously mentioned, that we just have a terrible track record of attempting to westernize and secularize countries around the world. And you can use Japan as an example all you want. The fact of the matter is the Japanese were, essentially neutered by the U.S. They had their entire military capabilities pulled away from them, and they were essentially a U.S. colony. And, in many ways, despite having some sort of Western, imposed values on them, they've managed to hold on to this extremely rigid hierarchical structure that you said that we got rid of by implementing our ultra rigid hierarchical Prussian education inspired model on them. I don't get it, but in terms of the Palestinians, I mean, and a solution being us going or the IDF rather going in there and kicking ass, taking names, re-educating everybody, blah, 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 go the West. Have we ever stopped to consider that, like, I don't know, Iran, Turkey, Qatar, all these countries probably will have something to say about that. They'll probably intervene. Hezbollah, like, even Russia and China at some point will step in and say, hey, Israel, you can't simply go in and just wipe out all the people you don't like and attempt to, like, I don't know, forcibly re-educate the entire population. It's sort of like, if this were any other context, all of you fucks would be like, this is a crime against humanity and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, because it's a US ally, suddenly the dynamics change. Everybody's standards are totally different. It's fucking crazy. It's crazy on every fucking level. I don't understand how anyone could honestly call themselves a liberal and make that argument, or a
Can I ask-
libertarian.
Can I ask you, non-smoker, if it wasn't the IDF doing this, and instead a third party, let's the UN, NATO, the US, China, I don't some neutral third party, right? Whichever you want, right? Came in basically and sat on Israel and Palestine and said, "Stop it. We are going to basically force you to both stop killing each other,
Get
and we're
along.
going to enforce the peace, like a third country, a third party, a third entity, right? Would that be something you would be amenable to? We're not going to talk about the realistic nature of that because I don't know if it is realistic. No one wants to pay that kind of cost. But at this point, that seems to be probably the only solution that would actually work. In my head, is it needs to be someone that isn't involved currently in the shooting to come in and say, "Stop your shit, and we're gonna fix this."
I mean, look, just going by historical precedent, and a really good argument can be made that empires are stabilizing forces in many ways. So, like the longest probably, or one of the longest stretches of peace, certainly in modern history, that the Levant, the entire region, had ever seen, was under while it was a subject of the Ottoman Empire. The millet system in the Ottoman Empire essentially granted, religious tolerance to its subjects. I mean, there was a long stretch of peace. So, to your point, Wick, like in some hypothetical scenario where a larger third party entity could come in, turn all of these people into subjects, make them all citizens, give them all equal rights, give them all free religious expression. Yeah, in a perfect world, yeah, that would be, I don't know, ideal in some ways. But like you said, I just don't see that being like a reasonable
Well,
possibility.
the reason I asked is I was just curious if it was just the principle of it, or simply it was the fact that you don't trust the IDF to do it.
Yeah, I think it's more that. I don't think the IDF is like a good foundation for a regional empire there, considering I mean, in the Middle East, the Israeli Jews are a religious minority relative to the rest of the region,
Sure. Um, I guess I know you have to go in a moment, and I want to give you a chance to shout yourself out, tell people. But one last question before you do: do you think, right, that the Jewish population, given the anti-Semitism we've seen on display across the globe, including in the Russian city where yesterday, I believe it was, a pack
Dagestan, yeah.
of a pack of extremists broke in and looked to the on the tarmac, right, in the airport, and basically tried to find as many Jews as they could. Um, do you think that the Israel, or an Israel, a Jewish state run by Jews for the protection of Jews, is something that is desirable or needed in the world today?
I mean, it's a weird question because, like, okay, one exists, so I definitely don't advocate for its destruction. Second to that, I mean, I do think that the rise in anti-Semitism in the wake of this is really fucking stupid and evil and bad, and anybody who espouses that bullshit is horrible, and they should be, fucking thrown from a helicopter in front of their family.
No, none of that.
But okay, but with that being said, I generally think in the West, even with a marked rise in anti-Semitism in the last few years, I do think that Jews' religious freedom or the religious freedom of Jews in the West is pretty well protected. I don't feel like there are like pogroms going on and synagogues being burned and things like that. I do think that there is a rise in anti-Semitism, but I guess what I'm saying, Wick, is like I find the question a little flawed because I don't know if a rise in anti-Semitism is needed to justify Israel's existence. I think Israel already exists, and in terms of this rise in anti-Semitism, it's a problem. But I also don't know if it's to a level where I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of people who would call Israel an ethno-state, and therefore ethno-states have no right to exist and should not exist.
Right.
So that's why I'm asking the question. But you have to go, so tell people where they can find you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then we'll continue this conversation.
Yeah, real quick. And just as a side, if anybody would like to talk one-on-one, would love to speak with each of you. Twitch.tv/non-smoker, non_smoker, and host of the struggle session every other Monday, 8 to 10 at WUSB Radio in Stony Brook, New York, where I'll be starting my show in an hour. Thanks for having me, Wick, and I'll see you all around real soon.
It was good talking to you, man.
See ya.
Bye-bye. With that, if there's anyone who is a sympathetic to non-smokers' position, we were supposed to have Mix Vivian Wolf on. I don't know. I hope she's okay. She's usually pretty good about showing up. But if there's anyone sympathetic to his position who'd like to come in and join us for this discussion, just jump backstage in my Discord, or DM me, or message me, or get a hold of me. I'd love to have you on to argue with these good people. We still got an hour of content to do, and I wrote a bit of, but I want to address this question to Mono. Mono, you are an Israeli citizen, correct?
Correct.
You lived there all your life?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that, given the state of anti-Semitism, not just today, but in the past, that it justifies... well, first of all, I guess I'll start by this. Do you think that Israel is an ethno-state?
Yeah, sadly, yes.
Okay. Is that justified based on the way that Jews have been treated throughout history and currently, even today?
Not to the level that it is today, so sadly, like the anti-Semitism and all that. With all that, still, like the amount of far-right extremism in Israel, religious far-right extremism, is just you can't justify it, regardless.
Do you think that's a result of ethno-states, though? Do you not think that we can have an ethno-state that isn't theocratic in nature?
Maybe, but it will still be bad in other ways. Like,
Fair
I
enough.
don't want it to be an ethno-state.
Okay. Does anyone disagree with this? Anyone think ethno-state actually may be okay?
Can I add something? I
Please.
am in favor of Israel being a haven for Jews, because Jews were always persecuted and are still persecuted. Israel should always be a safe haven for Jews.
How do you keep it a safe haven for Jews without there being some sort of... So, for example, right, one of the reasons that they don't give more, or one of the stated reasons that they don't give Palestinian citizenship and voting rights, is because they would become a minority, and they fear that would be... Is that fear not somewhat justified, given how many in that region just have no love, to put it bluntly,
I think in
for Jewish
Israel,
people?
we really need separation between church and state, or
Okay.
synagogue and state. I think that would change a lot of things for the better, because being Jewish is also like a nationality, not only a religion. We all know
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
I'm Jewish. I'm an atheist.
Gotcha. What's everyone else's thoughts on this? I want to get
Can I
everyone else
ask?
in here.
So
Please.
I thought this, and I'm just looking at it. So you define Israel as an ethno state, but you
To
don't
some
want
extent, at least, yes.
Yeah, well, that's critical, right? To some extent, at least, because it's not a true ethno state in the idea that like anybody can become a citizen. And so, you kind of express the idea that you wanted to be a safe haven for Jews, but then also not really an ethno state in the sense that anybody can like become a citizen. My understanding is, according to Israeli law, although any Jew in the world can go to Israel and become a citizenship, get a citizenship. Anybody can get a citizenship if they've had residence there for 3 years.
Yeah, sure. I don't disagree.
And there's
I think
like
you might be a bit more educated than me on some stuff related to this.
No, that's
which
fine.
Is funny.
No, that's totally fine. So I guess it does make the point then, right? I mean, 20% of Israel is Arab, right, and they're citizens. And they have offered citizenship to the Arab population of Jerusalem and the Arab population of the Golan Heights, right?
I guess to make sense of this, to me, Israel is more of an ethno state than I would ever want it to be. Maybe it's not.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's more of what I because it's obviously not on paper like just pure ethno state. That would look entirely different. But it's very, very like in that direction.
No, that's very fair. And I agree that I don't think that ethnicity should be a factor in anybody's citizenship. And ideally, we push, once Israel, I guess, doesn't feel under threat all the time, maybe they may be more open to those changes. But I mean, does anybody here disagree with Israel? I don't know, I guess having
Yeah,
the right
we
to
need
return
it.
law.
Okay, gang. Look, if you're in the audience and you're an Israel hater, like I'm talking hater. If you are anti-Israel, we need you. We need you
Come
to
at me,
help balance.
Well,
Scrabble,
and
I'm
to be
ready.
clear, we have ethnostates in the U.S. Right, Native American tribes. 70% of them are ethnostates. So if you're going to take a principled position against ethnostates, like you have to compel most Native American tribes to either dissolve or reform their citizenship requirements to allow white people.
I want to answer Wick's question because the answer is I don't know. Because on one side, like there's kind of almost a spectrum of like full throttle ethno state to where it's for these people who speak this language with this religion, and then it's like, all right, you have like the soft core ethnocentrism, which is basically what the Americans did post the banning of slavery, right? To where it's like, oh hey, you're technically a citizen, but we're gonna like subject you to like Jim Crow and shit, right? Like soft core ethnocentrism, if you guys want to call it that, like that's a very real thing. I don't know if I support any of this, but there's also levels to where it seems to be something that humans have not demonstrated an ability to escape. Germany's for the Germans, French for the French, Holland for the Dutch. Almost every nation has its foundations within an ethnocentric identity, and I don't think anyone has actually made the process of abandoning that outright. We can talk about the more open countries when it comes to like literally the diaspora of peoples who incumbent them, United States and Canada, being made up of over 20% immigrants and, and other groups that aren't even associated as part of that ethnicity. But have we succeeded in transitioning from that form? I mean, how many people still say that America's for the white people? I don't know where one ends and one begins, to be completely honest. And if that sounds a little bit spastic, I apologize, but there's a part of this where it just doesn't compute in my own head, if that makes any sense.
I wanna give a chance for Temperance here. I called for anti-Israel people. Temperance just showed up. What are your thoughts? I want to give the mic to you for a minute.
Come
and
at me.
All right. I'm not 100%. I'm going to be as nasty as you want, Wick. So I'm going to apologize for that.
It's okay not to be nasty. I just need someone with a strong opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So my
Go ahead.
material is the problem is that it has this huge conflation or people not able to make the distinctions between race, religion, nationality. Like there's all these factors involved that makes the whole situation doubly complicated because like you have Jewish Arabs living in Israel. You had them living in Israel before the whole British occupation even happened. So they're being natives to Israel, they're being native Jews to Israel is a thing. However, a lot of after the British occupation that started in the 1930s, a large portion of Jews that do live in Israel now are phenotypically European, not Arabs. So this is where you get into the very complicated mixture again of race, between race, religion, nationality, all that stuff. And I think that just makes the situation that much more volatile because you have Jews of European descent who are, and I know one person on here is Israeli, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to admit some shortage as far as my education on this. But basically, you have Jews in Israel of European descent who are saying, no, we are native to this land just because we happen to have an Arab Jewish ancestor from like 20 generations ago.
I'm native to this state because I was born here.
That's
I'm
not
Ashkenazi Jews, by the way.
being born in an area is not nativity. That's like me saying that I'm native to North America because I was born in the USA. I'm Northern European. That is my nativity.
Wait. Why does it not make sense to say I'm native here because I'm born here?
Well,
Like,
I don't
Go
know
ahead.
what race and being born somewhere are two completely different things.
Okay. I mean, so what you're saying is like you as an individual are native here because you were born here, but your people are not native to this area.
Native,
Yeah.
a person born in
Okay.
a specified place or associated with place by birth.
Sure. So like,
Right.
where's the threshold here? Like, how long do we have to be here before we're native? Because like almost everyone on this planet is not native to where they currently live.
Okay, so I don't have access to a computer right now. Maybe somebody can look. What percentage of people who live in Israel were actually born there?
Most of them now.
Yeah, by this point, most of us. Oh, you
Okay.
want like a specific
Right, the
percentage?
Since the 1930s.
Uh,
I mean,
according to the OECD, it's 26%,
Really?
which is pretty high.
Oh, well, fuck me, I guess.
Wait, hold on.
26
I
yeah.
just literally, I'm going to see what year this is for. Hold on, maybe I'm late.
Yeah, 26% foreign born now, I could totally believe, but not.
Oh, that's
not,
2009. Sorry, hold on.
As
Yeah, 26% that are only have been natively born in Israel. That's really hard to
if
believe.
that is
No.
true,
I said 26% immigrants. So 26%.
Okay, yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
people.
no. We were thinking you were saying 26% native.
Yeah.
born.
No. But that's
Because if
that's
that
also
was
wrong.
true-
Yeah, that's
if that
also
was
wrong.
true, then we have an issue, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's also wrong though. So that was from 2009. It was 26% are immigrants. So it's probably even a lower percentage now. I'll keep looking.
so 26% immigrants, at least in 2009. That's fine. We can work with that, right? So that it would be fair to say that over 70% were born there, right? I guess to ask you, Temperance, right? Just to get an idea of your stance here. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist?
I believe that Jews do have the right to a country where they can be safe and free from prosecution.
But
not
Israel
Israel.
specifically. Do you think Israel has a right to exist?
So my thing is, and again, this is from what I looked into it.
Sure.
At the time that Britain and France started encouraging Jews to move to Israel, it was at the time a British territory. And from what I understand, basically their whole move for that was because after all the stuff that happened after World War I, they essentially just wanted their Jewish population gone, and they were willing to give them this land that they really didn't want anyway. And the problem was they moved them to land where people were already living. And since then, it's been 80 years of oppression, violence, ethnic cleansing, and call it whatever term you want to, is European Jews and Jews from all over the world have been moving to this little piece
They
of land
immigrated, to be
and
clear. They immigrated there.
Immigrated
Mhm.
and have been slowly pushing out the original population ever since.
Do you are you in support of immigrants to America? Why or why not?
So my whole thing is I actually don't like national borders at all. If we could completely eradicate them, I would do it. Because I believe people should have the freedom to travel not only for their own personal opportunities, but also being able to get away from bad governments, to be able to get away from danger.
So why
just
was
believe
it
people have
bad
the
that the
travel.
Jews decided to move
Because
to
they did it through
Israel?
violence.
The European Jews fleeing from the Holocaust did it by violence.
Once they got to Palestine and started oppressing the native Palestinians, yes.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I guess my issue with this, and I don't want to get into the origin thing because it like yes, that did happen, but the Palestinians also were trying to kill the Jews that were coming in too because they viewed them as colonizers and they wanted them gone and dead. And so you had
Right after
freaking-
the declaration, by the way, not like
yeah, this was in the 20s, right? Like the Balfour Declaration. That's what you're talking about, correct?
Is
the
my mic
declaration
working?
of Israel.
Oh,
There,
Ban-
But I'm not. But
there
I'm
was
not. But I don't
skirmishing
condone
before that.
either.
yeah, so like this idea that it was just all one like again.
Oh
you
no,
had-
there's definitely enough shit on both the throw on both sides.
Sure. I guess, but my question, right, and why this kind of bothers me is because a lot of this rhetoric against Israel sounds like it's just rhetoric against immigrants.
Yes,
In general,
exactly.
right? It sounds like there is a group of people who are coming to our country that are going to take away our jobs, displace us, make us a minority in our own country, and therefore we should kick them out or keep them out. Sounds like great replacement theory to me. And I'm just trying to struggle. I'm struggling here to figure out what's the difference between how we denigrate when a white nationalist would say that about America versus us talking about a Jewish immigrant.
I just want to know where you want to put us, like all the Jews from Israel. Like take all the Jews and put them where?
Oh, so what is the line between like the emigration? When does it become a problem, I guess, because the Jews that ended up in what we now call Palestine they're largely there because of pogroms, because of the Holocaust. Like, I don't see where else they were supposed to go.
I'm assuming that was a question at me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
just wanted to be sure. So the thing is, I mean, they're living there. A lot of them have been there for multiple generations. They're not going anywhere. So there has to be either an international intervention to essentially force a two-state solution. Basically, a bigger bully needs to jump in between the two bullies, split them up, punch them both in the face, and tell them, look, y'all are going to your corners. Just don't talk to each other for a couple decades and cool off.
They already did that, though, in 1948, and the Arabs, the second that went into effect, the Arab world just attacked Israel. Like,
Indeed.
in 1948, when the first Arab-Israeli war,
Like
just
many,
after Israel
like
declared
many
independence.
times, many times.
Yeah. Like, the problem is that, like, Israel is like it's a hyper-militant state, but it's also like they have very good reason to be hyper-militant and to have such paranoia about the Arab world. Is because they have on several occasions just been fucked or attempted to. The Arabs usually failed.
Just a
army sucks.
housekeeping
Right,
issue. Just a housekeeping issue, real quick, gang. If you're in there and you want to support Palestine, if you are pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, we need you on this panel. So jump backstage, and I'll bring you in. And I want to give Temperance some support here, and
You're
just
doing
make
great.
sure she has someone in her corner. So please.
So there's 2 points there that I wanted to address. One, this is why, looking back, honestly, the entire formation of Israel as a Jewish state was a stupid move to begin with. It was dumb. The location was picked for sentimentality reasons on the part of Jewish people, and just because it was a territory that Britain didn't want anymore. The entire placement of it was dumb. Because you notice that when they talk about giving Israel their own state, they didn't say, hey, let's carve out this chunk of, like, all of us European countries will get together and we'll rip up, we'll designate a chunk of Europe for all these Jews to live in and create their own state. America didn't offer up any land and say, hey, we're going to basically do a essentially equivalent to native reservations, where we're going to give you this territory in America. Y'all can come here, live safe, be, essentially sovereign in our own country. They didn't offer up their own land. They didn't offer up their own. They went to someone that they were already oppressing and said, here, y'all can have this.
Well, hold on,
Can you all-
Britain
wait,
gave up
Can
their
you
own
all
land.
imagine the Jews running Vegas? Like I'm like that. That's literally kind of what you're pitching here.
Essentially.
Like, there's a reality here, right? The Brits kind of did that in the regard they're like, hey, we have an empire. You guys can go back to what you're claiming as your ancestral homeland. We, as the Great British Empire, allow this. Whether you think that was intelligent or not, like, that's effectively did what happened. The problem is that I think literally when it comes to the arguments, both sides are pretty much dead even when it comes to historical narrative and historical precedents, because at no level have either of these peoples not lived there for the last 3,000 years.
Yeah, and that's where the problem comes. That's like what I was saying earlier, where you have Palestinian Jews. There have always been Palestinian Jews there. So the idea that having Jews living in Israel is somehow a new thing, it's disingenuous at best and retarded at worst. I'm sorry. No, you don't like that word, Wick. Sorry.
You can say it on air. You just can't say it in my Discord.
Whoops.
No, it's okay to say retard on the air. Look, I don't want to get into it. Total
Yeah.
tangent. But yeah, fair enough. Responses to that. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
look, it was Britain. It was Britain who gave part of the land. I mean, I don't.
It's all our fault.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Like,
It
there's
literally is your fault.
There's a ton
I know,
of
right?
yeah. There's like
So it's half the world's
there's a
fucking
ton of shit
problems.
here. There's a ton of shit here, and I honestly going back to my proposition, I think I don't like this concept of like blood and soil, or like the land belongs to some kind of group, some kind of like ethnic group, or we got too many of these people coming in, well, we got to keep them out. I think the question is just like at the end of the day, what's going to be better overall? Which I mean, it's not Palestine, not the PLO running Israel. I mean, we know that.
Well,
If
since you're here, Temperance, I suppose I'll ask. Do you support a ceasefire?
Of course, I mean, people are dying.
Oh
What
yeah.
what
Like that's
happens
gonna
after the ceasefire, in your opinion? What should happen after the ceasefire? Ceasefire, you snap your fingers, Biden puts pressure on Netanyahu. Netanyahu and Hamas decide, okay, ceasefire's happening. What next?
So, like, I mean, in my dream world, and of course, there's a difference between what we would like to happen and what will actually
What do
happen.
you
We
think?
just,
Okay, what do you think is most likely? What would you advocate for to happen? I guess. What would you advocate after the ceasefire? You get your way on that. What's the next advocacy that you're making?
my advocacy at this point would just be to split Israel in two and create an independent Palestine and an independent Israel. And that's, but everyone who keeps bringing up the 67 maps, have you looked at the 67 maps? They make no sense. Like a whole new map has to be, beside the fact that most of that probably wouldn't work now anyway, depending on how the land's been changed and that over time. But I mean, a two-state solution is really,
Okay.
that's the
Say
only
that happens,
avenue I
two-state
see for this at
solution.
this point.
You draw the map so there's congruous, like they're not partitioned like they are now, so that the whole Palestine is connected.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Hamas gets Fatah and gives them flying lessons, right? Basically throws them all off the roof, takes over. Iran continues to fund money, and now we have even more land, even more power, even more population. We're gonna wipe Israel off the map. When do we get involved?
I, the problem with Iran is both the same problem and also a completely separate problem. It is a sovereign country that we have already sanctioned to the gills. We already know that it has an undying hate for Israel and pretty much any country that's not Muslim, and that they fund and filter weapons and that too over probably a dozen different terrorist organizations at this point, for the sheer purpose of killing Westerners.
So
We know
split
that.
Israel in two and hope they don't kill us. Like I
No,
want
I
to
mean
hear
that's
how
dumb.
you go in depth.
I mean, if we want a real solution to the problem, then I mean, yes, it would cause even more problems in the long run. But I mean, we need to find a way to completely isolate Iran. Iran is
Surely
too
just
much
like the Iran,
involved, and huh?
surely just like the Iran deal and like trying to normalize relations with Iran
Well,
would
to my knowledge,
help
the
the
only thing
situation.
that the Iran deal did was it was supposed to halt their nuclear program.
Yeah, but
Like
it's
as far
also
as
like
I
a
know, that's the only thing that was supposed to do.
yeah, but it's also like a step towards normalization with Iran and having it more congenial relationships with the West, which I do think is probably necessary for Israel to ever like feel safe, is to have an Iran that isn't completely fucking mental.
Yeah, but how is that even accomplishable? As long as I'm
I
going to
genuinely don't know.
completely as long as I'm going to completely butcher his name, Anatola Khamenei. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's like a person or an
Khomeini.
organization, but like as long as that
It's a
exists,
The
title.
The
Ayatollah.
Ayatollah.
there's
Just
Yeah.
call them the Ayatollahs. That's what I do.
yeah. I mean, as long as that exists, there is no possibility of normalization for Iran.
Hard
Maybe.
disagree on that shit. Look, there is an underlying pressure under Iran to liberalize. The vast majority of the population, I honestly do not believe, likes the current government in any way, shape, or form. Remind you, it is a multi-ethnic empire. You still have the Persians who oppress, if you will, 50% of the population. It's only about half controlled by the Persian people. The rest of it is Arabs and a combination of Kurds and a few other peoples that are just kind of usurped into the wider region. A whole other conversation. But we have seen earlier last year, we've had a shitload of women demonstrated, marched, and almost there was a real conversation if we were going to see a revolution in Iran, just because how pissed off women were, and visibly so, in that country. We have their economy is in shambles. Literally 50% reduction in GDP in 5 years. No one, I'm sorry, not necessarily no one. Basically, a bunch of old men like this country the way it is, but it's getting to the point where if you can flip the young men to say, fuck it, we're done, you have a revolution on your hands. So there's absolutely room to move with Iran. I just don't know how we Westerners can do it effectively because we suck at it. We're really bad at it, but it's
We're
something that
terrible at
absolutely
Republicans.
but it's something that we can absolutely, if somebody knew the handbook, and maybe we need to have to talk to the Turks about this, to actually move the needle to a more liberal direction for Iran, we can change shit pretty goddamn quickly.
Yeah, like the Ayatollah and the Council of whatever the fuck it is, the Islam Council. They've never had as strong a grip on Iranian society as like the House of Saud has had in Saudi Arabia. Like Iran could very easily be like in a transitionary stage towards democracy, but I think most folk agree it's like a ticking time bomb on that right now, especially with what we've seen the last year.
So
I don't.
I think there's, because like you both kind of just reiterated what I think I was trying to say. It
Maybe.
wasn't that Iran can't change, and hopefully they do have a revolution sometime in the next decade. That would be wonderful to see. But I'm just saying is, as long as those who are in power remain in power, they will keep funneling weapons. They will keep funneling money. That it will not end until they are removed from power.
So what does a ceasefire do then? And like, if you acknowledge this, right, and we acknowledge that Iran funds Hezbollah, funds and sends money as well as Qatar towards Gaza, right, into Hamas specifically. Ceasefire stops it for now, but isn't that just kind of kicking the can down the road?
It is. This
Okay.
the ending to this is not going to come from outside forces. It has to come from within. They have to stop hating each other. They have to stop throwing bombs at each other. No outside force is going to get them to do that. They have to be there has to be either one of two. The way I see it, there's three possible outcomes. One, the regular people of both sides overthrow both their governments and say, y'all ain't doing your jobs. We're going to step in and we're going to essentially having a revolution on both sides, and they finally coming to the peace talks. One
We're
side
getting to
destroys
that.
the other. What I say? I said three. But those two, either they're either going to come to peace on their own, or one side is going to destroy the other.
Fair enough. I just don't see peace on their own coming anytime soon. Like, they've been trying this, what, 75 years?
Except has it
don't.
really though? Because
Like
outside countries have been trying to get them to come to peace, but have the forces within
Do you
really been
remember when
wanting peace?
Yasser Arafat and Rabin shook hands, like during the Oslo Accords,
Yeah.
right? Like the Oslo Accords. Let's be clear why the Oslo Accords didn't work. Two reasons: because the Hamas equivalent at the time vetoed it by letting off a series of suicide bombs, and or martyrdom operations, they like to call it, or right, and the extremists within Likud and stuff assassinated Rabin, right? They killed him. Yet still, even in 2000, the winning party in Israel wanted to end the settlements, right? End the occupation, end all that, right? In 2000, that's what they wanted to do. Israel was going that direction until the Second Intifada, in which case Hamas, or the equivalent at the time, decided to veto that as well, setting up 140 suicide bombs between, I think, 2000 and 2005. And those were just as successful ones. So they are not going to be allowed to make peace because there are extremists on both sides who will not allow that to happen. So I guess I don't see them doing it on their own. It has to come from somewhere outside, right? I guess I totally disagree. Someone outside needs to come in and step in and say, no, stop this shit.
unless there's
except how can that end in anything else other than just outside military occupation for another
outside
100
military
years?
occupation can sometimes be based.
Not
More based
historically.
than people killing each other all the time,
Yeah.
definitely.
Like no matter which way this pretty well goes, unless there is a major cataclysmic reorientation in like geopolitical affairs, either Israel wins quickly or they win slowly. And I'm not going to get into the consequentialist ethics of like, hey, do we want people to die now or die later, or slower amounts over a longer period of time? I don't give a shit at this point. The real question is that like, what will Israel have to do to win outright between now and then? And there's levels where like I don't want to be a part of that personally. I do favor Israel over Palestine for a number of different reasons, but there's still levels to where I'm like, yo, if you all got to do this shit and clean house, like I understand, because like I would probably be one of those radicals if I was Israeli. I'll remind you all, I would feel the same way if I was a Palestinian,
Well, I
because I'd
want
be
to.
a radical.
Okay, I just want to, because people I think are getting my position here clear. I do not
Mhm.
support what Israel is currently doing. I think that they're
Sure.
going with overkill. I think that
Mhm.
they cutting off the food, water, electricity, etc. Is just a humanitarian crisis that is going to be catastrophic in nature. I think that Israel, the IDF specifically, isn't using the care it should in order to prosecute this war. That said, Hamas needs to go. There has to
Okay.
be a military action. I don't know if I support ceasefire. I go back and forth on it. I want the killing to stop, absolutely. But realistically, do I see Hamas honoring a ceasefire? No, I just don't. Um, so I don't know. That's where I'm at. Anyway, Katerion Tiberius. I just wanted to make that clear. My
Sure.
position.
Like I was kind of going to ask you that one because it seemed like you were pointing somewhere, and I wasn't quite sure where you wanted to go with it. But like I just aside from dream utopia bullshit, right? Just like putting this on the floor. Where do I say this? Israel is going to like slowly like um, choke out the Palestinian people. They may get to a point where they find they can integrate some size of the body politic into Israel proper down the line, but it's going to be whenever they're like 30% of the population that could be assimilated at max. They're never going to let it become a diversion of an ethno state, or at least I don't believe that they will. Now, if you have more people like Mono who want to prove me wrong, fucking go for it. I don't know if that's actually gonna happen, and I don't want to hold out that hope because it just feels like way too pie in the sky for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Fair enough.
Gang, I once again am reaching out to my chat to help balance this panel out because we have a lot who are more sympathetic to Israel and we need more people who are more sympathetic to Palestine. Unfortunately, the people I had lined up ditched me, and so I would love it if my audience, the Wickers in chat, can rise up, right? And from the river to the sea, make my panel a little more pro-Palestine. That would be
Just a
lovely.
little.
Bring in like an
like-
active Hamas fighter into the.
Tiny bit.
Yeah, I apologize for not being like, oh, I want to
No, it's
support
okay.
Palestine,
I
but
know
it's definitely
weaponized
like I don't want
discourse.
to.
I know
I
weaponized
was
discourse in my
disappointed.
chat is
Yeah.
very pro-Palestine, and I'd be curious to have her position on why she supports a ceasefire, what she would like to see happen after a ceasefire, and what she thinks is actually going to work here. So while I won't have Sunday on, I will have you on weaponized discourse. Jump in my chat, and we'll make this happen. So.
I can ask some questions. Temperance, you said before that you are not a native to this land. I'm guessing you live in America.
Yes.
Do you think you have like an obligation to give your land back to the Native Americans?
Given the fact that I have no heirs, there is a good chance. Well, I own no property either. But should that ever change in my life, then there's the high possibility that yes, I would actually leave in my will anything I have to someone of native heritage.
Okay. Do you think America?
Wait, whoa! I missed that. Repeat.
Have
You
me
would
repeat what I
leave
said?
your property if you had it to someone of Native American heritage.
Sure, if I didn't have a hair of my own.
Fair enough. Do you think that that should be something other? Would you encourage others to do the same in that position?
Sure, why not? I mean, they have to leave it to somebody, and right now, I mean, if you look at a lot of the reservations, I mean, they're literally like, what was it? I think last time I looked at the statistics, something like 78% of Native Americans live without running water and electricity.
Are not Native
I could be wrong on that, I
American-
will admit.
Yeah, but like, isn't so reservations? They have a lot of problems, right?
Mhm.
I guess I'll just ask: do you support reservations?
I mean, I support that Native nations should have them.
Sure, yeah. Maybe not in the current state, like a better reservation you could support, yeah.
I believe that a lot of restitution needs to be made. For example, I'm sure I can't remember which one it is, but right now they are having to barter with their water rights because they have water rights, but they don't have enough money to get the equipment to process that water to give themselves water. They shouldn't be having to sell those water rights. The American government should just be giving them the equipment they need to be able to produce their own drinking water. As an example.
Interesting. Okay.
So
aren't they ethnostates though? Like,
I mean, ethnically, yes, because everyone who lives there is in the tribe. However, not everyone who lives there is necessarily, because given native, and I'm not native, so
sure.
But from what I understand, because of the history of the colonization of the U.S., large portions of native tribe members only have, a lot of them are biracial, a lot of, to ever smaller and smaller extents, because the only way really for them to grow their numbers is for them to marry into other races.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Do I have any actually indigenous people in my chat who want to jump on? Because I'm very curious. I'd like to pick your brain on this. So jump backstage if you are.
If you can, for like a 2 seconds, can you say to me like what's the situation with the reservations? Just
sure.
like
I can tell you all about it.
Sentence.
So, roughly 70% of the Native American reservations in the U.S. have citizenship laws that are based on blood quantum. You have to be sufficiently Native American in order to be a citizen. And that means the non-Native American citizens or non-Native Americans that are living on reservations can't be citizens of the tribe because they don't have enough Native American blood. So technically they're second-class citizens, which would make them apartheid states, right?
Yeah, but those laws were made by the U.S. government, not by the tribal governments.
No, so the U.S.
No.
Hold on. The U.S. absolutely had statutes in place. Those statutes have since been gotten rid of, and the 70% of Native American tribes that have blood quantum requirements do so because of their own constitutions. They could change them.
Yep, we run off of our own tribal councils that make those laws.
Fair enough.
And Samantha,
So they're
you are
apartheid
indigenous,
states.
just to
Yes.
be clear?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain well, first of all, is there anything Lactoid said that was off the mark? Do you want to clarify anything? Right?
No, me and Lactoid have talked about this before.
Fair enough.
Who the hell let you on here, Samantha?
Wick did.
I'm excited.
Hope.
This is gonna get spicy.
I really hope so.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm very milquetoast on this, but like I'm just here to Wick wanted somebody to confirm. No, like we use blood quantum, and the tribes that don't use blood quantum will have you like do your lineage, right? They'll have you put down like the last 5 generations of your family to find who else was there, right? So if you're like me and you were born there, it's going to be a lot easier. Like you were born on a res. Like if you have the generations thing, like it's a way to gatekeep, right? In a good way. Like this is a good thing. But all in all, we have a tribal council. We run by our own laws. We cannot vote unless we have an address off the reservation. Like we are our own independent little sub-function. We're like subletting property from the United States government in the end, if you want to understand like that kind of analogy. But yeah, we are pretty ethnostates, I would say. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a safe space against. It's a safe space away from white people.
And just real quick, people in my chat who are saying, "Oh, nice balanced panel." If you're pro Palestine, please, I'm begging you at this point.
Dude, I
come
wanted to
into
talk
the
to Vivian.
chat,
So
and
bad.
I will drag you in, and you will have a platform, and I will give you space. I want you here. I want to hear your perspective. Right?
Could I ask a clarifying question?
Begging. Go ahead.
So I might be misheard, but so if you're in like a native reservation that's within like I don't know, fucking Nebraska or wherever, can you vote in like the presidential elections, or if you're a congressperson?
If you hold on, yes, you can. If you have an address that is off the reservation, in most cases.
But if you're lived and born there, you couldn't vote for.
That's hit or miss. That depends on the reservation.
That's fucked.
No. It depends on the reservation because some states have like certain you have like the federal law, and some states have like different laws. So some reservations, depending on where you're at, like if you live on the reservation, no, you also don't get to like use some government programs. Like you have to go through other programs to like within the tribe, and then like it reaches out, and then you can use government programs from the United States. Like there's process. It's not just like a direct like, yeah, cool, you're here, you can vote. It's not like just a normal thing. In some places, it's not blanket across the board, But like I said, it depends on the reservation, depends on the laws in that state.
I want to.
Well.
Okay, I
Okay,
think
thank you.
we've gotten the indigenous portion down. I'm curious, right? So, given that the fact that we're okay with this, right, or at least I think we're okay with this, is anyone against this?
I just want to just quickly clarify, Samantha. I love you. Native Americans can vote even on their reservations. They can vote for president or within their state.
Depends on the reservation.
I don't know if any reservation
they have the
bars
authority.
you.
No, they have the authority from the federal government. Like they do, right? Then it comes down to like states and then like the tribal councils as well. Like there's other like factors in between.
Well, I think to put this in a little bit of context, and you
We can talk later about that,
like
Lactoid. We'll get back to Israel Palestine. You and I should talk about it.
Okay.
Aren't there like 535 acknowledged tribes in the U.S.? I don't know if that translates
Fuck
to
if
the
I
number
know.
of
I'm only from
reservations.
one of them.
I'm saying is that there's a lot more out there than people seem to think there are.
Sure.
True,
Do
and
they-
a lot of them
I
have to
guess-
share reservations as well.
What I'm trying to kind of pick apart here by this line of questioning and trying to like wrap my brain around is why we are against it when Israel wants it, and why we support it when the indigenous populations want it. What is the primary difference? And I don't know. Like it seems to me, at least, that with the indigenous populations, at least in America, they are far more of an ethno state than Israel is, and yet no one's giving them shit, right? So what's the difference?
I don't
Because you have
have a.
the. I was
Oh,
going to say
sorry.
because sorry.
So-
I was
you
going to
go.
say because you have two major differences. One is the oppressed, where the other is the one with the power. You also have to distinguish between one being done through violence and the other one being done through weird bureaucracy. So
Yeah, that's
it's-
exactly what I was gonna say. Like there is like a. I don't know how I feel about this, but like if I was the devil's advocate, what I think someone who is part would say is that the natives were like genocided, and this is basically all they have left, and it's like basically a concession. Whereas I think Israel has
This
with
is
a lot
so
of the
weird.
territory. I know I don't believe this, but
Yeah, but like
okay.
weren't
It's
the,
like-
weren't the
I mean,
Jews
the Jews were
also
genocided in multiple. Yeah,
genocided
before
in
World
this
War II,
whole-
you had the Russian pogroms.
I'm
They were
Yeah,
facing
like,
genocide
I know.
and killing
So-
on every
so
place they've tried to be. So it
this
was
is
like
literally-
give them a space to not be genocided.
Yeah, like
I
literally. Okay, so this is the problem I have with this, right? It's like, all right, cool. We're gonna say, hey, these people have been oppressed. They don't have a land to call themselves, so we give them a land, right? Whether it be natives or whether we be Israel. And then Israel got to a point where it grew out of basically being oppressed to where it could become the oppressor, right? Because now it's fighting another people. They are clearly winning in there. It's like, all right, now they've lost their mandate. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, look. This is why I don't like take up a lot of these arguments as far as like, oh, you know, Israel is great and they're our allies because they're winners versus Palestine are losers. Like, I don't really care. Like, what is the reason that they're fighting? It's an ethno-religious conflict to where, you know, these folks don't like each other for a fuckload of reasons. Should we support one or the other? And I will pretty much put into this. If you're talking about the ethical standing, fuck no. If you want to talk the bias of, hey, Judaism is far more akin to what we find normal and that we can work with that better than what Palestine is, then that's pretty much the only argument you can make for me.
So, hi.
Israel's just closer.
Hello.
Are you pro-Palestine, Food Chops?
I am pro-Palestine to a degree.
Elaborate.
Yeah, so I guess the main problem is that when it comes to Palestine, I guess the main issue is that when people discuss it, it's not exactly that. Okay.
Okay. Stop. No, let me just ask you directly.
Yeah.
Do you think Israel is committing genocide in Gaza right now?
No. There's not enough information. There's not enough information.
Do you think
The
that
Twitter lefties aren't coming, Wick? They're hiding.
do you support a ceasefire?
I don't have enough information for that. No.
Okay, you are not helping me, Food Shops.
They're
Wait,
hiding.
do you want epic blood?
I
Is
want
that what?
the people
problem
who
is
are
the Nakba.
complaining at me. No,
Wick,
what I
the
want,
problem
what I
is the
want,
Nakba.
what
the problem
I
is the
want,
way, the
Food Chops,
fucking,
what I
the
want,
problem
dear.
is the
what
way
I
you were
want-
driven
I
out.
want someone to like punch me ideologically.
Do you want
and
Sunny
not
to come
getting
in?
this
who
Do you
fundamentally
want Sunday to come in?
disagrees with the panel to come on and state their case. I would
Yeah,
love that
somebody
to
reach out to
happen.
Nine
I am-
Tails and Sunday.
well, first of all, Sunday, no. But Nine Tails, if she wants to come on, is welcome.
You know what the hilarious thing is? I'm pro-Palestinian and I haven't been challenged on like my pro-Israel takes one
Because
time.
none of us here are anti-Palestine. Well, except for maybe Lactoid.
Wait,
Lactoid
yeah. I'd be anti-Palestine, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Why
I think
are you
Lactoid did that, but the
anti-Palestine?
rest of us
Wait,
are like,
what?
Palestine's cool. We like Palestine. We just want
I wouldn't
Hamas
go that
gone.
far. I might be pretty close to anti-Palestine, but the problem is like what Israel has to do to quote unquote win is still unethical as shit.
I'm anti-Gaza, but I'm pro-Palestine.
Anti-Gaza.
What? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Explain yourself.
Well, because with Hamas's rule of Gaza and their history of coercing people through fear or like threats of death, if we were to take people out of Gaza, right, and be like, do you support them genuinely or is it coerced? There's no way to actually tell, which is why the other Muslim countries don't want to take them in because there's too much of a risk or a threat. They've already fucked with Egypt. They've already fucked with Jordan. These people are unfucking trustworthy. It sucks, but it is the way it is. You know, it's that whole if like one Nazi sits at a table with 9 people, they're all Nazis and they're all okay. Same thing with the people of Gaza. Okay, they're all fucking psychotic shitheads. And until we can differentiate who's factually not a psychotic shithead, it's too big of a risk.
Well, there's also the problem that every time any surrounding country takes in any Palestinians, they never take them back. Like, it's happened to Lebanon, it happened to Jordan, and
Or the
right now
government.
Egypt's like, you ain't doing this shit to us again.
That's a good point, Temperance, because I want to talk about this as well. I wish I had Vivian here to talk about it. Vivian, wherever you are, I hope you're okay.
Where is she? Just
But
call
why?
her.
Why didn't you like at least tell me you weren't going to be able to make it? Really, it really put a.
It bummed me out.
It bummed me out. Let's say that. The right of return. You are for the right of return, Temperance?
Yes.
Who else is here for the right of return is good? Raise your hand or wiggle around.
Wait, right of return is good for who?
Yeah.
In general, we should support the Palestinian right of return.
Yeah.
Yeah, half raise my hand. Only half.
I'm
This is why I need a more balanced panel. God.
I'm not in favor.
Libby's
I'm not in
still
favor of the law of return. I think it's the worst part about Israel.
What
I
do
think
we
it's
do?
the best law about Israel because it allows people back to their safe space.
For the right of return.
It's the entire
Because,
fucking point of
to
Israel.
be clear, what the right of return is, let me explain
That's
it
not
to
the
you.
point of Israel.
Is Israel, right, allows Palestinians who either A, have been forced out of Palestine, Gaza, West Bank, wherever, for various reasons, or their previous generations had, right? So their grandma or their dad or their family or something. What it allows for is them to return to the territory and to return to their property. So my question becomes, for those of you who do support the right of return, you support that, you allow them back into their property, but the property has a Jewish family living in it who bought it fair and square, right? Who didn't kick anyone out for it. They were born there, right? Like, what happens to them?
Why
Are
does
they
a
living in,
why
like,
does
the
the current generation
settlements?
get to benefit from the evils of the previous generation? What right do they have
Why
to
should they be
inherit
punished for
something
the
that their
evils?
ancestors took
Do
by
we
force?
believe in collective punishment? Do we think?
Yeah, this is original sin.
Wait,
Is that not what is currently
Temperance?
happening to
I think
Palestinians in
Temperance
Gaza right
does.
now?
You
I think
can't
Temperance
judge.
believes in collective punishment because she did the self-hating white shit earlier.
You can't judge the current generation by the generation that came before it. Like if you do, you literally just have original sin, and you cannot stop before that goes.
It's not about punishing the current generation. It's saying, why does that generation have the right to own this stuff that they inherited? Why do they have the right to inherit ill-gotten gains?
They were born there.
We all
Because
live
they
on ill-gotten gains,
they
though.
literally
You're
they literally
American.
inherited it. Like inheritance is to a right, and I will absolutely defend that. Like you can take any fight you want with the shitheads who did it, but like once it starts passing down, you're in a whole different ethical ball game here and a moral ball game. I'm not gonna act like
I guess it's about the practicality of the right of return. It's like it's so hard to like locate.
True.
Okay, we have to go back, and then like if there's somebody who's like living there, then it's like how the heck are we gonna force them to like get out, or like the legal stuff that is like behind that as well, right? But like I don't know, it's like a complicated issue, right?
I think there's like a better argument for like reparations for like victims of like the Nakba than there is for like a full-on right of return. for people back to like, their property, because I don't think you can really do that. That's totally unfeasible. But maybe some sort of reparation thing. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't crunched the numbers on how much that would cost or who'd be paying it. But yeah, I think there's like a better argument for that.
A whole lot less than all those rockets they're throwing.
Probably
Those
something
things
like
are
a
what, 50,000
monetary
apiece?
reparations.
Yeah, like some sort of monetary reparations.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could be like maybe for this, if they were going to do like a one state but multinational state, they could have like, I don't know, we'll build these houses, or like we'll build these like new towns somewhere, and like we'll give people like an apartment or something. I'm just spitballing, but like I think that right of return is dead in the water, and it has been for decades.
We're talking about like a hypothetical like right of return, because the right of return is that Jews get to go to Israel.
Yeah, we're talking about the Palestinian right of return.
Yeah, there is no
the
right
Palestinian,
of return for Palestinians
right?
in Israel.
Yeah, I actually think that like if you can, I don't know. I think there's a strong argument that if you can prove that you have an individual who has a specific piece of property that was taken from them, then they should probably be able to get that back. Now, it becomes like I actually agree with Tiberius when we start talking about like the generations afterwards. Then it gets a lot more difficult, and I don't think it would follow then, right? Because if you can prove that you directly were hurt when somebody took your property that's different, then you digging back, finding like, oh, like 2 generations back this happened, so now I'm entitled to XYZ, because you personally weren't the one that had it taken from you. So
interesting.
I may be simplifying it, but like the right of return for Palestinians, and if a Jewish family, Israeli family lives where they used to have a property, then if nothing can be done, give them a different property and give reparations for the land that they lost.
A beachside property in Gaza. That's what would happen. Like realistically, like if we give them different property, they would just. If we go back to the Gaza open air thing, right? Like it would be. It wouldn't be better. I don't know. It's one of the things about this whole situation, if you allow me to rant for a moment, is how complex it is and how many moving parts there is, and how each year and each decade that passes, it just gets more complex. No side is free of blood on their hands. Israel has plenty. Netanyahu specifically and the Likud specifically have rivers of blood on their hands. But the Hamas, the PLO, and the PIJ, other organizations such as that, have equal or more amounts of blood as well. It's really hard for me. No?
No, I would say like, especially when you're referring to, if you stretch it all the way back to the Nakba, like I would say that, like, especially if you include like the Nakba and stuff, like it's probably more on the Israel side, but I think that's debatable.
The
The
Necklin
Nakba,
stuff?
yeah,
Nakba.
especially
The
when you're
Nakba,
talking about the
Nakba.
Nakba,
Okay, I know
yeah.
what the Nakba is. I don't know what the
Yeah.
Necklin is.
So
Okay.
the Nakba was following the war that Israel got attacked by
Yeah.
everybody.
Yep.
They like counterpushed, and a lot
It was
of
pretty
people,
damn bad.
a lot of people in modern day like border Israel, a lot of Arabs
No, let me
fled.
put my notes.
They fled, or there's allegations of the Israelis pushed them out, and it was a lot of people. It was a decent chunk of people.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this
To take that a little bit further,
and there's a lot of
basically
and there was a lot of Israeli denial as well. Like especially on Israel's end. In fact, there was I think in 2011 there was such thing as like the Nakba law that was enacted, where they took I think state funding outside of organizations in order to like shut down any mention. Like it was like a free speech kind of law where they shut down mentions of anything around the Nakba or something like that.
Dude,
But hold on, let me
psychopathic.
pull up. Let me pull
Okay.
this up. Like they took out like Nakba denial is like a real thing where
I
they
understand.
kept
No,
on
no one-
mentioning
no one
out.
is-
It's
no one is-
monstrous. It's terrible.
Yeah, no one is saying that wasn't monstrous and terrible.
And when you say that there's an equal or whatever the amount side this is
you have to ask.
irresponsible
It's
messaging.
Arab.
This is
It's Arabs have
irresponsible,
won.
Wick.
if Palestine had won, what would they have done? Because you can't stop it. What
Obviously,
happened?
I agree with you. No, Wick,
Mhm.
I agree with you. Obviously,
So why are you saying I'm
Palestine
minimizing
would
things
have no
when I'm
doubt.
comparing?
I have no doubt that Palestine would fucking genocide the Jews. Okay,
Okay.
obviously. Okay,
So
I have no doubt.
I think
already
it's okay
concede to that.
to equate
I already
the two and
concede to
measure
that.
the two, but I need
I
to
concede
give
that.
Tiberius
And
an
I
out
also
real quick, and then
concede.
we can
Okay,
argue and yell at
Wick,
each other.
Wick.
Tiberius can have his out, and then we can yell at each other. And I know
Tiberius,
that
sorry.
the
Tiberius,
Lactoid
my
has
bad.
to go as
Tiberius.
well.
Chaos reigns.
Yeah. So Tiberius, then Lactoid, and then we'll yell at each other for a minute. But go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me crash the panel. Do appreciate it. I actually don't support continuing funding Israel. My stipulation is they have to end the settlement program. Then we can reinstitute. If you want to keep it defensive to where it's like, hey, we'll give them Patriot for Iron Dome and CRAM and whatnot, I can maybe float that, but I'll also even give it to the Palestinians because I'm that much of a dick. Anyway, without further ado, my name's been Tiberius D. If you enjoyed whatever I have to have said today, feel free to come check me out. Tiberius D, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, all the things. I'm pretty much on all of them, but I don't always make content for all of them. Wick, great to see you. Please have me on more. We are to the point now where I can actually rejoin everything. Harvest is coming to a close. So yeah, feel free to throw out the invites.
Will do.
And Lactoid, I'll see you on the next panel.
Okay.
I also enjoyed talking to you. So
Pleasure.
Bye.
Mhm.
Lactoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my final thoughts are, ultimately, at the end of the day, colonization and civilization by Western powers, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it can be a good thing, and I hope Israel does do the good thing and make sure that this is really the last Gazan conflict that we have to worry about, and that, really bring in all the Gazans and make them Israeli citizens. I think that'd be a good idea. You can find me at Lactoid TV, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube.
Thank you for being here. I'll check you out. Gang, just before we end this segment, right? I will say that on tomorrow.
All right, give me 1 second. Gotta go over. Just adjusting the StreamYard.
What's going on, buddy?
What's up?
Well, good to see you again.
Long time no see.
Right. It's like I just saw you,
Yeah, that was a pretty one-sided, just numerically panel.
That was pretty fucking impressive. I'm a little shocked at that one.
Oh man, Plonker, I think I'm gonna be sick. 70% taxes.
Wait, what?
So my buddy here, he lives in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
and he's saying that before he pays. What are these taxes? Let me read these. Before he pays council tax, sugar tax, and another one I'm missing. Oh, road tax. They're paying 70% taxes out of every single check.
I believe
That's
it.
before that. Before those other ones I listed. I think I would be sick, bro. The Texan in me is just wanting to start a revolution for him.
Well, look, I'm that asshole who it's like, if I have to pay 100% taxes, I will. But
All right,
I better be getting my fucking money's worth for it. I better have to not worry about a fucking thing right? And like that's the kicker. I don't think that's viable.
All right, what do y'all
'Cause-
think? What do y'all think I should drink tonight? Watermelon sangria, pink sangria, sweet red. We're going watermelon.
I think you need to drink anything non-alcoholic. Okay.
I need to drink something after hearing about 70% taxes.
Well, don't involve me in that. Okay.
You don't have to drink, Papa.
I didn't notice.
I'll sing a song for you instead. How's that?
I had so many fucking people triggered on me on that last thing.
I don't even think you were being that bad.
I pissed that one guy off originally, but then like we talked a little bit more, and he's just like, "Oh, you actually know what you're talking about." Okay, fine.
Yeah, that seems to be a general trend. I feel like in a lot of these panels is they'll come at you thinking you're crazy, and then once they realize that you're not just a total crazy person.
Yeah, well, like I didn't realize the person was Israeli because I'm like, what's your bias here? Like, why is it that I'm not getting I'm not getting what you're laying down here? And then I realized, oh, he's Israeli, right? So it's like, oh, okay. You know, this guy's clearly got a bias where it's like, oh, you have a moral right and obligation to support the Israeli cause. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, look, I like Israel more than Palestine, but I'm not going to act like what y'all have to do to win is not demonstrable. Like, you're literally going to have to do the same things that was done to you to get Israel. Like, irony be damned.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know if was it you that said this, but I was kind of halfway watching while I kind of started going on a rant about taxes. But they were I think it was you saying that yeah, there's no possible solution for with a two-state being viable. Like it sounds bad, but they need to go in there. They've been too soft on it, in my opinion. They need to kind of go in there and make it a one state, and then it's gonna be rough for a little while, but then eventually everybody gets like acclimated and becomes the same. Becomes one people.
The Palestinians are just such a critical mass that Israel cannot successfully integrate them while still remaining Israel. Because I would love to see United States of Palestine, because that's what it would be, like straight up, like the United State of Palestine. You literally hell, fuck it, rename it Judea if you wanted to, right? The problem is that at no point do these people agree with the identity of what this nation would do. And like this is where like you still have people who are like, hey, I am an Israeli Palestinian, and I think Israel's pretty fucking awesome, but they still know that they're second class citizens. They know that.
So I mean, almost like what's like? So you're a big fan of like the Roman Empire. I mean, what's the difference between that and like when they had the auxiliaries that they gave for citizenship to?
Are we about to get pulled? I
think we're about to get pulled. We'll do debate that later. We'll talk later. Yeah.
Oh, we already pulled. Okay.
We'll talk
Wow,
later.
that was fucking amazing. Yeah. So like, I'm kind of a fan of the Romans in that they made one of the most successful institutions in the world. Remind you, by most of our ethical measures today, we would we would despise the Romans, right? Like pro-slavery, like literally made it where war was profitable. Fucking absolutely like would not stand up in a modern state, right?
Maybe.
Like there's just levels to where this conversation just gets wild really quickly, because like the Roman analog to the modern day is pretty much the United States.
Interesting.
Less gladiators, unfortunately.
I mean,
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? Unfortunately,
I'm
like,
joking.
oiled men.
I'm actually joking, but Lactoid, I believe,
okay,
would
fair
support
enough.
that.
I'm okay with gladiators if they get paid enough and they sign a waiver.
No, I am not okay. I mean, if you know my
Like-
stance on football, I can't imagine you think I'd be okay with gladiators.
Yeah, I'm cool with football. Like the UFC is like right on that fucking gray zone where I'm like, this is fucking cringe to some degree. I'm not gonna act like it's not.
I actually beat the guy. So I did MMA for like 10 years and wrestled like before that. I actually beat the guy, Mike Jackson, that beat CM Punk. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to the UFC. And then I blew out my knee. So I could have been one of these guys you're talking about. There's
Didn't
no
CM
interest.
Punk like perform notoriously bad in?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could have been me knocking him out. I could have been famous because he was a scrub.
Oh, could have been famous for beating the scrub.
Hey, whatever. He's a famous scrub. That's all that matters. Can crushing like Floyd Mayweather. Let's go. I would have been a scrub.
Yeah, how's everyone doing? Great to see you, Prime.
Oh, great to see you as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me back as always, Prime.
Of course, Gibbs. I like I say, I really do value Gibbs. Like we don't. Here's the thing, keeping conservatives around is difficult. You guys tend to act like divas. But
Well, in this
but
space, they kind of
honestly,
are.
But we show up on time, right? I mean, I'm just saying.
Wait. Wait. As a
You are the
representative,
one exception. Corey.
yeah. Well, someone has to, put up a good front.
Fair enough. Yeah.
There's a
notice
little
our
right winger with
conservatives
him, and
are
I
a
can
rock-
feel it.
Yeah, we figured out last time I was on here that Corey is secretly a right winger. He's
Well,
secretly.
no, you agreed with me, Gibbs.
No,
Yeah,
you were
no,
you
I
trying to
was
audit the government, trying to find out where our taxes are going. I'm all on board with that.
transparency is a left-wing idea. Absolutely.
Is it though?
Yes, absolutely.
You notice all the beards are on the conservative side today so far.
Just ask the Catholic Church if they're transparent.
Oh well, that's religious conservative.
Well, that's pretty much right wing. They're one and the same, essentially.
okay, great. So Ty was saying something inflammatory when I walked in about Palestine. I didn't hear enough of it to properly direct my anger at whoever needs to be yelled at.
All right.
Oh, 1 second, sorry.
So y'all be proud of me. I feel like every group of people has a piece of knowledge that they need to know, right? And so I was talking to this African American girl. And she told me I was looking ashy today, so I went and bought lotion, and man, it is wonderful. I've never bought lotion before, but Lord, I'm feeling good. I don't know. Daily Results Intensive Moisturizer. Man, my skin is luscious today, baby. I love it. Everybody got
acting like you just like discovered fire.
Now you're definitely.
I didn't Columbus it. I didn't Columbus it. I said they had y'all had the piece of the pie there.
You're definitely on the left now. If you moisturize, you're on the left.
Hey, listen.
Well, now we have to ask the only other person. Oh, actually, no, we got two of them. We have to ask the other white men in the room. Did you guys know what lotion was before this very moment?
Lotion? Is that like a?
What language is this?
LOSHUN.
Is that like AAVE for something? I don't know.
Right.
What about you, Ty?
I'm so sorry. I was replying to some angry emails.
Yeah, he's never heard of it.
No.
Wait, what's the question? Do I know what lotion is?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the dick beating juice.
The dick beating juice.
Yeah, like I know what lotion is. Like I've had girlfriends. Like I'm not that much of a loser. Okay.
I've been married and I didn't know what lotion was. What you talking about, Papa? What you talking about?
Have you used it, Lactoid? Are you slathered in it at this moment?
I am not slathered in lotion at this moment. So.
You're missing
out. I can tell you right now, you're missing out.
I have some like scent reducing lotion that I use before hunting, but that's about it.
But y'all about to say, all jokes aside, like y'all, you can just get up and like leave, like just your house. You don't. It's not like a daily thing. That's crazy.
Yeah, in the driest air, we just get up, we just walk out. It's great. It blends in.
It's like a superpower for y'all.
Yeah, I mean,
and then if it's summer, we get burned.
I'm white. You just want to go out there saying that. I don't know if that counts. I'm white passing. If the Nazis ever take over, they're getting me around.
I think it's worse. I think the Hispanics are more on top of this, actually.
Probably so. When did Canada discover lotion?
I did not cover that in my.
Oh crap! We got 3 Canadians. We got like your people are here. Yeah.
I'm ready to argue with Mooncake more about Texas law versus Canada law today. Yeah, that's what we're going to argue about already. I already know.
I'm the only real Canadian here as a Quebecer. Let's make that clear.
Quebecer. People in Quebec are kind of mean. They're like a little mean.
No,
do y'all ever like each other?
Totally Corey.
Because we're exactly because we're the real Canadians.
I feel like there's like 1,000 miles between each Canadian.
Can
city.
we annex
like,
all Canada except for Quebec?
Quebec to Vancouver is like how much would that be? Like 3,800 kilometers, something like that.
Kilometers, God.
Well, that'd be in miles.
I think it's about 3,000 miles. I know across the United States is about 3,000 miles, I believe. So roughly equivalent
around
to that.
there.
Like I was watching this Canadian high school football team, and they had to like charter a flight like to go to games. Like it was crazy. I was like, this is
Hey, we have the
ridiculous.
CFL up here. We have the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, and you made the field bigger for some reason. The football field was perfectly sized. They're like, you know what? We're just gonna make it a little bit bigger.
I had Johnny Manziel in 2 classes, and let me tell you something. That was wild stuff. Wild stuff.
You went to A&M?
Yeah, I did go to A&M.
Oh,
Ooh, thanks to Gig'em.
Right.
that's a crazy school.
It's a great school.
We are just waiting on a few other people to
Except for them
arrive.
firing Kevin Sumlin for Jimbo Fisher. He's terrible.
One
Terrible,
second.
Jimbo.
I'm gonna grab something.
We're just waiting for a few people to arrive, and then we'll get started.
Fucking SDL making the leftist dream wait again.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll be here in a second. SDL, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'll just hop in the StreamYards.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Do you think
Yeah.
that? Do you think that? Never mind. That's a dumb question. Let's just not let that happen.
Okay.
I never ask dumb questions. That's why I like. Wait, that was not
I
funny.
love it.
That's a
Fucking
good
love
joke,
it.
Bam. Great.
Says that
Hilarious.
with such a straight face. Hey, even I I try to ask the best questions I can, but even I have to ask dumb questions, right?
My man Gambit would like to disagree with you on that point.
Actually, Tiberius, you were mean to me in the last panel. Don't think I forgot.
I have
Your
no idea who
message?
you are.
You.
Yeah.
Oh.
We start off. We start off strong.
Like, wait, what? I was mean to you? Like I usually wouldn't forget a face, and I seriously don't believe I've ever been with
your
you.
face is forgettable.
Thanos you, bro. He just
Especially when
Thanos
I
you.
forget a black
I don't even
one.
know who you
That's
are.
That's what Tiberius just said.
Look,
You're
like
not even worthy.
somebody send me the VOD. Like if I need to make
No,
apologies, I will 100% do so. I don't.
I was in the comments on.
Oh, that doesn't count. Look,
I don't know
I,
if that kind of counts.
look. I'm gonna be for real here. When you're on panel, it's a different game. When you're in the chat, fuck chat. Like you're free range. All right. Like seriously, like y'all chatters, I don't respect you until you get on fucking panel. Like y'all are cringe as shit.
Put your face on the screen.
You goddamn right. Look, if you have to voice chat with us because you're doing your like 8 to 3 or whatever else, 100%. Like I fully support that. I've done that on Wix panel before. But like for real, like I want you to have a real conversation with me, not fucking 200 characters of bullshit.
I think that it seemed like you didn't take like criticism well. Because I didn't say anything offensive or anything. I just think maybe the criticism you didn't like.
Little snowflake tie, typical.
Look, I am a sensitive man. Okay, like okay, memes aside, I'm cool with criticism. The problem is, criticism through text is fucking weird because it's either like it comes off as completely dense, or it comes off to me as just like, oh, you don't agree with me, so fuck you. And it like, if you have criticism of me, I'm all about it. What is it? What do you got?
No, it was the I think you guys were discussing. I think Wix said something along the lines of like, do you have to pick a side? Sorry, let me show off something on my phone. And I said, if you refuse to pick a side, that makes you a coward. And I think that's what you may have taken offense to.
Oh yeah, I won't take offense to that. Fuck off with that.
Tell him.
Like sometimes doing nothing is still its own. It's still its own action. It's still its own consequence. And like, if someone's gonna call me a coward because I can say, "Hey, as a rational actor, I don't want to be involved in your fucking bullshit," quite frankly, that's entitlement in its purest form, and you can fuck on off with that.
That's what we call a weak answer right there, my son.
Yeah, I think
I'll take it back on that one. Weak. Pick a side. Pick a side.
It's like, yeah, pick a side. I'm like, nah, base centrism. Fuck off. That's true centrism. Okay.
I don't think centrists work in every scenario, but fair enough. If
I'm
you
being
think
I'm aiming a little bit on that, but
centrists work in no scenarios.
yeah. So there is levels to where even saying I'm not taking a side is a side into itself, and you can say it's like the third way, which has seriously cringe connotations now that I think about it. But there is levels to where you can say to two people, hey, y'all are fucking dumbasses, and I don't like either of you. I think that's a completely rational
There's absolutely
conclusion to make.
conversations where two people are wrong. Like it's okay to acknowledge that. You don't have to It's
like I have to take the side between communists and fascists. How about no? How about you both suck?
I'll agree with that. Like, I hate whenever like you go on some of these panels and like your
But that's
ally.
not a centrist position, though. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what you
Yeah,
just said. Is
if
not a
you
centrist
said like
position.
compromise, yeah, that would be the thing. Like, hey, there's I
Oh
think
well,
both of these
I
guys
think
have a
that's
point.
look. Here's the thing. I think that's actually the problem of centrists, modern centrists, is that they are innately conservative because they want to preserve like some level of the status quo. They might move a little bit here or there, but like the where the rubber hits the road for them is they don't want to actually move. Their game is compromise because they're trying to continue the system that it is. The problem is that they don't act like radicals sometimes to where you're like, hey, I got to beat that ass. I'm not going to work with you. I don't like you. Like I don't want to involve with you. Like
I just think based on what like at the time the conversation from what I can remember, right, that Wick and you guys were kind of having, I just thought it would have been more appropriate to pick a side in that scenario that he was giving. But that was just my personal opinion, and
I respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So yeah, appreciate the criticism, and more particularly appreciate to have that actually out, because I can't have that conversation with you on chat, and this is why I hate chat. It's just there's so much, I don't know, subtext that I'm not getting. Like I can see not just how you're talking, but your body language, all that kind of thing. It conveys way more than just I don't agree with you and here's why. Like I just fail to do that well. Like I'm an asshole on Facebook. Like this is why I stay off of it.
Yeah.
Would
I
black
don't
toilet
know.
paper be fancy?
Mooncake
What?
is new to this, and the way I do it, no, I just say, no, fuck you, Ty, you're wrong. That's how you do it. No, you take a firm stance and you say, no, Ty, like you're completely wrong. This is the reasons why, right? And you're a bad person for thinking otherwise. That's how you do it.
Yeah, you like
that
you
comes
came in
with
saying like,
experience.
"Oh, we agree to disagree." You got to get that like Canadian kindness out of you. Like I'm about to say, we still working with Corey on that. Like you
No,
got somebody.
I don't.
I'm pretty sure that's
I
why
don't agree.
Connie's asked me on this panel for the second talk, just so he can tell me that I'm wrong the whole time. I'm pretty sure.
I think you need to know where to tell people where to square off, and like that's kind of where I feel like I gained that Israelis respect in that last panel. Is that at first I'm just like, nah, dude, like you're telling me I had to take a side. You could fuck off with that. I don't have to take a side. I have no obligation to help Israel or Palestine. And then whenever I explain that, it's like, hey, look, I think you both have good arguments. I actually don't think that like there's a greater like moral superior side to this conversation. Like I earned that man's respect because I could actually validate the position. At least that's how I took it. Y'all can tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay. Let's get started. Everyone is here, so we're gonna jump into it. Thanks all for being here, to my panelists, and thanks to the audience. This is every roundtable, which we do Mondays 8 p.m. Eastern. Really excited to have you here. We're going to start by introducing everyone. And yeah, I forgot the rest of my intro. Lactoid, thank you for being here, friend. How are you?
Doing great. No, Prime, thanks for having me on. I'm Lactoid. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you. Bam, you are here after snubbing me last week. When I reached out.
I just didn't like it.
I reached out a hand in friendship. He slapped it away. But bam, you've deigned to make an appearance today, so we appreciate it, guys.
I've honored you with my presence. That's more than enough. It's more than you deserve, as is. But you know what?
Shade.
I'll just give I came here to give correct opinions and be. I thought I was gonna have to be the representative of the black community, but it looks like we have a half Z with us. So
no, a full Z.
A full Z. 3/4 Z. Canada, you're Canadian. It's a little bit different.
Ain't the same. Agreed. Let's go to our friend.
I can respect that. That's probably true.
Corey, right? Another shapeshifter in disguise here. He makes you think he's American, but certainly not, right? He's interloper. Corey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Always grateful to be here. And in stark contrast to Bam, I'm here to give incorrect opinions, obviously, as always. I'm clearly just Bam's counterpoint. And yeah, I'm here to represent the one true Canadian as a Quebecer. And as a Quebecer, looking forward to being my typical mean self. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv, CoreyCampbell84. And on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, it's Corey Campbell. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Thank you. We got a real American here. Our friend Admiral Gibbs.
Just in case you were confused about what country I'm from.
Certainly not. From the only one that matters. Admiral Gibbs, thank you for stopping by.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love it. I appreciate you inviting me back. I know that after people tell you no one time, you ban them from your panels for life. I know that's a thing. That's discussed on that. No, but yeah, I appreciate you always having me on. It's always fun stuff. I think like you do a real good job of having nice, varied panels, and I think this is really good for America is to have these kind of discussions and really worldwide. You know, if you don't get to learn with other people thinking, then you're doomed to fail. And you can
Fair
find me on
enough.
Admiral Gibbs and everything. So
Thank you.
Good for America, bro.
Thank you, Mooncake, who is here.
Hey.
Nice to see you once again. I hope you're doing well.
Oh yeah, I am doing well. Thanks again. As you know, I'm just kind of new to this. I just basically play video games on Twitch now, League of Legends, Minecraft, and Sims, and I do some panels on the side, and I'm looking forward to today.
Thank you. Next, we have a friend, Ty Berius, who proved in the pre-panel that he's a filthy centrist, not to be trusted. A fence sitter, won't take a side, standoffish, right?
I think you know better than this. Stop spewing your lies and your deceit. It's not appreciated, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tiberius D. It is great to be back here once again, especially with so many awesome people here. I always know I got to fight when I see so many of these faces on. And Prime, thanks for having me on again. If you don't know me, I'm pretty much a moderate Republican. I kind of just go out with MAGA's trash, but so is the left. And so trying to take in this somewhat base centrism, somewhat like social conservatism out here and be like, all right, let's make it work. But until then, if you're interested in what I have to say, check me out, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, all those things. And then let's see if you like what I have to say tonight.
The intro left a sour taste in my mouth. Moving on, let's go to Sock Done Left.
Feeling nauseous myself.
Yeah, indeed.
Hey y'all, I'm Aiden or Sock Done Left. I usually stream, or I'm trying to get back into streaming. You can find me at sockdoneleft.org, socialist and progressive, and can't wait to fight all the fuckers on here.
Absolutely. And we'll move on to one of those fuckers. Doobie, thank you for being here, our Dark Lord and Savior, who we've missed. Hopefully, we'll have him for the entire time. We're going to cross our fingers and our flippers on this one. Doobie, how are you? Cannot hear you, friend.
I was muted, but I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So yeah, I'm Doobie. I'm a fascist, and yeah, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, and the truth comes out. Clip that and send it to all your enemies that you've ever had here on this panel. But thanks so much, friend. Okay. So topic one. A recent Arizona law has expanded the number of families eligible to use school vouchers. This increase is due to the lifting of income caps. This has led to an increase of funds that need to be dispersed, which seems to have exceeded the state's budget. Should people of higher incomes be allowed to use school vouchers? Should private schools and homeschooling parents be able to use public funds for their private use? And should school vouchers be done away with altogether? Yeah. So I saw this article. I'm like, it's Sunday night, trying to think of what the hell we're going to talk about. And I'm like, we have not yelled about school vouchers in a long time. And I figured my friend Latchwood would love to do it. So here we are once again, school vouchers. Yeah, so for Arizona, so they're expanding this program, and they're finding out that it simply costs more, right? Like you're giving, it's like a scholarship. They're calling it like a scholarship to go to whichever school you like, and a whole mess of people are now joining in, and now like the state's wondering, how do we deal with this? Do we like allocate more money? Do we just have a hole in our budget? Like, do we raise taxes? Not going to happen. But I think the real problem is whether that money should be used at all, right? Like, is it going to the right places? Should it simply public money stay in public hands, or is it available for private people? Sorry for our friend Lactoid.
Yeah, so I guess a couple things here. Although it's true that way more people are applying for private schools or using the voucher program than they plan for, the government is stating that, I mean, this is an overall pretty small portion of the budget, and there's enough discretionary funds to cover up that gap. So they're not saying it's going to be catastrophic or that they need to make any massive changes, just that, holy shit, a whole bunch more people than we planned for are trying to get vouchers because they don't want to send their kids to public education. Based on what I know now, I do support voucher programs. I know there is a rift here, a pretty strong rift among libertarians. But I do come out on the side. I think voucher programs overall are a good idea. There is, just empirically, there's a lot of evidence that indicates vouchers have a good overall impact on academic performance. There is some evidence that exists to the contrary. It appears to be a pretty overhyped minority, just based on my review. There's also some evidence that indicates that overall voucher programs do save money. Although it is public money that people are getting, overall they're getting less of that public money, and their kid doesn't use up the expenses of going to a public school, and they're still paying the taxes that they would otherwise be paying anyway. Also, I think vouchers help provide some protection against American public education. I just learned on my last panel that a Marxist-Leninist was a high school teacher that we were debating. This is terrifying. Between social emotional learning and Psychus's new sex education standards and Marxist-Leninist high school teachers, I can sympathize with parents who don't want to send their kids to public school in its current form. School choice ideally creates a market effect for schools where schools are held accountable for underperforming, and parents have an option to move their kids away from poorly performing schools. And poorly performing schools be punished in a market sense, and better schools be rewarded in a market sense. I think vouchers generally help this. So overall, I think it's a good idea.
Great. We're going to have a fight later on. Very happy about that. Next, our friend Bam.
So basically, fundamentally, like the concept of school choice, I have a big disagreement with, just based on the idea of like, would you like suscepting children and their like educational performance to the market, because like my issues are related to what happens to children whose parent may not have the best parents who are able to get them make the efforts to get them in a better school, what's happening to them. But at the end of the day, I always just because I have an issue on the front end, I still have to appeal to data. The data that I've seen seem to show that for the children that do take it, though the parents that do take advantage of school choice for their children, those children do seem to have better academic outcomes on almost every study I've seen. The research is more mixed when it comes to the children that are left behind in the public school system. Apparently, there's some forms of school choice that are actually showing some benefits to those children based on the schools being held to, like, I guess, a market standard, having they're competing a little heavier on the academic side. But apparently there's quite a few programs showing that those children are having worse academic outcomes, especially the ones from the lowest economic background. And there's just seems to be more research necessary based on the idea that it's really hard to control for these things, because I think overwhelmingly a parent who's willing to look into school choice is also a parent who's willing to is going to be more involved in their child's academic life in general, from like helping with homework or and they're also more likely to be higher educated, which is going to impact their educational outcomes. But like I said, right now I am mixed.
Okay, thank you, Corey.
Well, right off the bat, so given Lactoid on a previous panel citing a YouTube video and getting some basic facts wrong, I question the empirics that Lactoid is citing, but I haven't been able to do a deep dive. But the evidence that I've seen seems to be pretty mixed. But like I said, I haven't been able to do a deep dive yet. But so for all I know, Lactoid is correct. But I'm very curious to see the evidence and the empirics that he's actually citing. Hopefully, not a YouTube video, and actual empirics. But yeah, based off of like the prompt and the information I've been able to gather, I lean towards pretty much like not school vouchers, where it seems to eat into public funds for schools. I do recognize that there are bad schools and schools that are poorly funded, and that they're poor performing schools, but I think there are ways to improve those conditions. And it seems like I also have concerns of people using vouchers for actually just dodging a curriculum that they just whatever take issues with. Where in the article that was sent, it seems like there was at least one parent where it's like, they had issues with gender identity or whatever, or being taught potentially gender identity. I'm not even sure that that's actually part of the curriculum at an elementary school level, but I don't actually know for sure. But yeah, I lean towards no, but I'm totally open to seeing actual empirics that will change my mind, and I'll leave it there for now.
All right, let's go to Gibbs.
Yeah, so I have empirics as well, and they're not from a YouTube video, so we're good to go, Corey. If Lactoid lets you down, Papa Gibbs is ready.
Not a Rumble video either.
I know that I look like somebody that watches Rumble, but Alex Jones has got low T and can't grow a beard like Papa Gibbs can, so I'll never watch Rumble. But anyway, sorry. So I generally agree with what Lactoid said. I'm also, a freedom of choice kind of person. I feel like people should be able to go to the school they want to go to. If they're okay with paying property tax to one school and then not going there, then that's on them. I don't see why they shouldn't be limited. Also, the evidence does suggest that, you get more individualized learning at private schools than you do at some public schools. However, some public schools outperform private schools in certain areas. It really just depends. But I feel like people should be able to choose where they send their kids to school, especially whenever they might have some kind of disagreement with what's being taught at a school. So, in general, I'm pretty good with the voucher program.
Mooncake.
Okay, so I'll probably make mine kind of short and sweet, just so we can get into it. But I would say that I'm against the school vouchers. I just think it opens the door for potential of like money making. As we've kind of seen in the past, private schools have usually been identified as a higher expense. So usually we saw like rich families sending their kids to private school. At least in Canada, there's still a lot of proof that public education and private education seems to be pretty similar. So the kids who are graduating at like the highest rates would still graduate at private or public. I also don't think parents or private schools should be able to use public funding. It's public funding for a reason. If you would like to go to a private school, you should have to pay for it. I do believe each school should be funded by the government so everyone gets the same education, but we can get into that later.
Thank you. Ty.
Yeah, so I'm not going to be a dirty centrist on this one. Ready? Fuck school vouchers. To hell no with this shit. Number one, I don't know why Republicans want to be like pro-choice on this. Like I get like it's an ideological thing, but like let's be real here. The only thing we get out of school choice is the empowerment of Democrats. Like it makes sense when you are in a major urban center and you're 15 minutes away from 6 different schools. It does not make any sense when you're out here in the sticks of Kansas and the next school is 30 minutes away, by highway. No, fuck this. Okay, that only empowers Democrats. What we need to do is that Republicans need to admit that we have failed in mobilizing teachers to teach things we want them to teach. Okay, they have really. I'm not even going to go down that conversation, right? We can do that in the open. I'm just going to say that Republicans are abandoning a fight that should be like core to our values in the regards that, hey, there's a certain way and certain things that kids need to be taught or should be taught. And we need to fight that on the public line so that as many kids as possible, grow up to be voting age Republicans. But until we do that, we're just giving the Democrats everything they could possibly want, and we're being really stupid about it. Thank you.
Okay. SDL?
Yeah, so when you look at voucher studies overall, there's this meta study, what's his face? Shaquille Anderson, Wolf 2021, and they found that the overall effectiveness of voucher programs is pretty close to zero. There's lots of studies which will show positive, lots of studies which will show negative, but the overall effect is basically null. The only argument for vouchers is that they're more cost effective per dollar, and even that seems pretty specious. In some of the data they looked at, like in this study, they were only looking at the tuition costs of private schools, but they were comparing the total per student cost of public schools. So I think the data on vouchers is pretty weak. If there's a positive effect, it's going to be small. If there's a negative effect, it's going to be small. Schools are just not in a good market. A lot like healthcare, they just don't work well. It's really hard for people to make an informed choice on where they're going to school, especially because they're not even the one purchasing the product and like experiencing it. It's their kid. More broadly, I would just note that voucher programs in the United States have a long tradition of one, basically enabling white flight, which is probably bad, and two, letting creationists and letting other reactionary ideologies into the textbook. When Maryland was considering doing a voucher program, fully 1 in 10 schools that would have been funded were young Earth creationists, and 1 in 6 would not have allowed gay teachers or gay students. So I don't know. It's pretty explicitly clear to me that the ideological bias here would hurt queer kids, hurt queer students, and also would lead to the importation of this completely anti-science worldview into some of our kids' minds, which is unacceptable.
Okay, and finally, our friend Doobie.
You're muted, Doobie.
Bastards. Oh, okay. So, as SEL kind of touched on already, I think that the fact that religious private schools have access to school vouchers is extremely troubling. Conservatives talk a lot about the ideology and the LGBT shit in public schools. I think that saving your children from that by pushing them into a school that's going to indoctrinate them into believing that the sky god is going to punish them forever if they do if they don't listen to him, their demons under the bed, and if their pee gets hard around other men, they're evil or some shit. I think that's much worse than anything taught in public schools about LGBT shit. So I'm on the fence as to whether or not school vouchers should exist at all. If they're said to support, them being helpful to students, maybe. But either way, I don't think that we should be funding religious indoctrination programs. Right? I don't think that's appropriate at all.
All right, open to the panel.
So for the people who are against it, because like I said, I mean, fundamentally, I want to be against it. Could data change your perspective on it, or is it do you have a foundational issue?
From what I found online, oh sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say from what I found online, it doesn't even seem like school vouchers actually improve academic performance. So to me, it just doesn't make any sense. If it's, I really just think it should be private paid for. So there should be no vouchers. If you want to go, you just pay out of pocket for it.
Sure. I've when I was looking up before this, and don't get me wrong, I didn't go crazy, but I looked at a meta study and 4 or 5 other studies that were all pointing to it being positive. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
curious, where it was, what you were
positive in what way? What do you mean?
Yeah, I've seen different numbers on this.
Well, no. I can read this. So the study that SDL cited, right, directly using a random effects and robust variance estimation framework, we find moderate evidence of positive achievement impacts of private school vouchers.
Yeah, you want to know what that was? It was so insignificant. It doesn't. When they did the actual meta regression, it's not significant. Here, if you can look at the funnel graph, and the effect is so close to zero that it's absurd.
No. So it was not on the 4-year test for math. It wasn't statistically. It was positive, but not statistically significant. That's not true for reading.
In the table 6 that I'm looking at, it's not. But
I mean, even in that case, wouldn't the argument be deciding the freedom? If it wasn't negative, then you let people do it.
I mean,
well, so one of the counters here is public school choice. Don't let people go to private schools on voucher money. Just let them pick between public schools.
So how's that any better? How's that any better?
That's not voucher program. It's not voucher programs though.
So
that's the alternative. That's the point.
Right, but this says voucher programs are good.
Between that and private school. Why is that any better?
Because if there's any benefit to choice, it's that it's letting parents or whatever pick better schools for their kids. The problem with vouchers is that they also let people choose these fucked up, crazy private schools. So it has all the positives of choice minus the young Earth creationism.
So here's my thing with that. Here's my takeaway with that, right? So as far as I know, at least in Texas, I can't speak for the rest of the nation. We're already starting with the Texas versus the rest of the nation. But so here's how I understand how it works. They have a standard that they have to meet for homeschool, for private school, for regular school. They have to meet a certain level of testing for I don't know what it is now, but it used to be the tax test and then the TOS test and all these things that they have to meet, and they have to meet these standards the same as the private versus the public schools, right? So whenever I look at these things, and I look at things like what I got one here from usnews.com, they're saying on average on these tests, on reading tests, they're averaging 15 to 20 points better at private schools, right? And then they're saying that these kids are scoring 20% better on the standard admission tests, the LSAT, not the LSAT, the SAT and the ACT. So they're averaging 20 points higher. I know that kind of varies depending on which version they have out at the time. So it's 20 points to 20% better depending on the test. This is according to U.S. News in their education right here, and I can link the article to y'all if y'all want. But the thing I'm sitting here going with this is I don't understand why this is a bad thing. As long as the schools, even if there's some crazy creationist school, as long as they're meeting the same standards, what's the problem?
Well, my problem would be I wouldn't want schools to be, again, this is my biggest thing. Like, I think the education, especially when we deal with children in our society, should be like the great equalizer. It should be no matter what like background, because when you go home, you're already gonna have advantages like in life. So it would be nice to know that, like, oh, okay, when you go to school, no matter where you came from, where you stand in life, like the argument is like the cream will rise to the top. Like, you're given the same opportunities to work hard and to find success.
Yeah, so I've got
documentaries.
Yeah, I'm going to split this a little bit. So, like on the economic side of this, when you do the hard numbers, like I've seen a lot of these stats that support, private schools do better by like X points, but then they do the meta analysis on it. And it's like, all right, what are these schools? Oh, they're schools for rich kids. And the problem is that we consistently keep finding here, at least from what I see, is that there's two major things that determine whether a student is going to do successful, and you can add it to three that are outside of funding. But it's basically one. Does this child come from a two-parent household? If they don't have that, they literally drop by 50 points. Just on that. The second part is, did they eat breakfast that morning? That's 20 points by itself, which is kind of a school funding issue because now we're having the conversation on like free lunches and shit, and free breakfast and whatnot, which I'm not really against. And also, do your teachers care? Because are they paid well, right? Obviously, school funding issue. It's not really about like where the funds come from and how they're distributed. To my mind, it's more over, do they have like the necessary background stuff to make it to where they're successful students? Do their parents give a shit? Do their teachers give a shit? And do they have the resources that they need? And private or public schools don't really separate the mean out very well. They both seem to do okay with it.
Just to respond to something earlier about Texas, the private versus public, one of the big problems in these raw comparisons is that private school kids are way richer. Like people from the top 10th are something like 3 times overrepresented in private schools compared to public. So yeah, they're going to do better on testing, but it's not because of the quality of the school. That's why you want to try and look at causal data, or you want to try and compare like apples to apples, people of the same level of income, same level of all the background stuff that Tiberius is talking about. Two-parent families is partly just amount of parent attention they can give to a kid, and it's lower in single-parent families. It'd be nice, I don't know if there's like an extended family like revival or something in the United States and grandparents get back to doing that, but in the absence of that, you need to account for stuff like that. And when you account for stuff like that, private schools don't do much better.
So hold on, that's important. They don't do much better. I don't disagree.
Well, not significantly better.
Well, that's not the conclusion of the authors of that meta-analysis. Right?
There's a reason they're saying the word suggestive. It's because it's not significant.
No. They didn't use the word suggestive. Wait, they did not use. They only used the word suggestive for that whether or not it's cost effective, even for null achievement impacts. The actual statement here, period, utilizing a random effects and robust variance estimation framework, we find moderate evidence of positive achievement impacts of private school vouchers.
And then when you read the actual section, it says it's suggestive because it's not significant. Like I'm telling you, you can look at the table, it's not significant.
Yeah,
the main saving grace you can find in this study is they claim that studies with longer time frames found more positive effects. So maybe voucher programs work in the very long run, but the data just isn't here yet. Like, if the effect is there, it's also really small. We're talking here. No, I want to be clear. The positive effect was less than less than a tenth of a standard deviation. So think of that as like a 2% increase.
So hold on. So I'll have to be totally frank. Then I'll have to look over that specifically. Maybe Corey here can help me. He's the king of data.
And I just want to be clear here again. The other thing here is too, we're conflating both the effects of vouchers and choice. Maybe we could just do public school choice and it would turn out to be just as good, right?
No. This meta-analysis on vouchers. Hold on. This meta-analysis is on vouchers, right? So this meta-analysis is on the voucher system. School choice is not a voucher system. That is on. I know. Yeah. So this meta-analysis,
that's what I'm saying.
Right. So this meta-analysis, which is on vouchers, like you can say perhaps it's small, right? The authors of the meta-analysis were confident enough to say that there is a moderate evidence of positive achievement impacts on private school vouchers.
You need to clarify that they're not making a claim. Like, so there's two separate things here to tease out. They're assessing the quality of evidence, and that's where the moderate comes in. They're not talking about moderate effects. They're talking about the quality of the evidence there, as in moderate evidence, as in to be different. There's a scale of like low quality evidence, moderate, high, whatever, gold standard, et cetera, et cetera. So what they're saying is there's moderate evidence to support that there might be some positive effects. That's not, I just spent the past 10 minutes like perusing the full studies, but I haven't read the whole thing yet. But like, yeah, Soccer left appears to be correct, as in the increase appears to be like a 0.08 standard deviation. To put an actual numerical value on it.
Corey's strongest word. But Amogus, before you go, just Lactoid. Could you tell us the difference between school choice and the voucher system?
That's what I want
to. Yeah. So school choice, right? So school choice is where, like, I guess they kind of sometimes go hand in hand. But so school choice is the idea of like, okay, I can send my kid to another public school. Right, I can enroll my kid in another public school. A voucher program is the government will give you a voucher, an amount of money based on what the cost is for education in your system, based on what they're spending on public school students, and then you can send your kid to a private school using that money.
Well, yeah, and then school choice, but those are public charter schools. Right, like
no, they can be normal public schools.
They can they can be normal. They can be normal schools.
Let me go on to why public choice is bad, if you don't mind. So I'm going to give you an example, and this is something I like maybe shouldn't be proud of, but I'm an asshole, so fuck it. I down here in Texas, I went to the #1 football program in like all of state history. They got the most wins, etc. Right, so it's very competitive, right? So a lot of these kids, they might be third string there, and they'll be like, "Hey, I want to go play football, but I'm only be third string here.